Good morning. Welcome. I would like to call this meeting of the Transportation Committee to order. Before we begin, I would like to welcome a new committee member, Patricia Nagora from IDOT OIPI. Welcome, Patricia. And we'd also like to welcome Gabe. Okay. Gabe is not here. As a reminder, this meeting is being shared virtually through Zoom for those who could not join us in person today, and it is also being recorded. Committee members, please remember to turn on your microphone, don't be shy, before speaking so that everyone online and in this very large room can hear you. Please also state your name before speaking so people joining online can know who you are. I would like to ask at this time for committee members at the table to introduce themselves. So I will start. My name is Tara Orban, and I am representing Cook County.
Scott Hennings, representing McHenry County.
Amy Lee, CMAP.
John Paul Deepla, FHWA.
Lindsay Fry, representing CDOT.
Kyle Whitehead, RTA.
Hugo Coronado, Metropolitan Planning Council.
John Loper, representing DuPage County.
Tom Vanderwood with the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission.
Lynette Civarella with Metro.
Eric Luan, representing PACE.
Heidi Files, Kane County Division of Transportation.
Mike Clemens, Lake County.
Good morning. Leon Rockingham, Mayor of the City of North Chicago, Council of Mayors.
Karen Robles, Illinois Tollway.
Steve Schulke, IDOT Region 1.
Jennifer Henry, CTA.
Patricia Nogueira, IDOT OAPI.
Brandon Gaber, IDOT Planning and Programming.
Richard Norwood, CMAP.
Amy Rydell, Active Transportation Alliance.
Thank you, everyone. There were no agenda changes requested prior to the meeting. Are there any requests for agenda changes from the committee? Seeing none. Do we have any other announcements from committee members? Okay, so moving on to item 3, approval of the minutes. So we have before us that was published online, the draft minutes from our April 24th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
Leon Rockingham, so moved.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second, Amy Lee, CMAP.
Thank you, Amy. The motion is seconded. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes as proposed? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 4.0 is the CMAP updates. We have Amy Lee from CMAP here to provide us with an update on CMAP news.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May Transportation Committee. Another beautiful day in our awesome city. Sorry that the windows had to be closed. Need to make sure we don't have glare on our cameras. Again, want to welcome both Brandon Gaber and Patricia Nogueira to the table. We appreciate your cooperation and participation today. We want to congratulate our communities who are awarded Safe Routes to School funding. Several communities in Northeastern Illinois who were recently selected for Illinois Safe Routes to School funding that was administered by IDOT. This program supports projects that help students walk and bike to school safely, including both infrastructure improvements as well as other initiatives such as education and enforcement. IDOT did a great job of getting the word out and spreading the love because a lot of projects were awarded throughout our region, including Roselle, Midlothian, Woodstock, East Dundee, Algonquin, Berkeley, Fox Lake, Glendale Heights, River Forest, Cicero, Plainfield, North Chicago, Schaumburg, Buffalo Grove, Glen Ellen, Evanston, Lansing, Harving, and Dixmoor. In addition to that, we wanted to highlight Woodstock, which recently received a $250,000 Safe Routes to School grant that was directly related with their ADA transition plan project that CMAP completed with them, as well as Cicero, which received both infrastructure and program grants this funding cycle. Cicero's grant application represented the final phase of CMAP's work with Cicero, and the award will help move safety recommendations closer to implementation. So together, in total, the highlighted regional projects received more than $3.2 million to improve safety and accessibility near schools. So that's really exciting news to hear. Then on to SS4A grants. As many of you know here around the table, applications for this funding cycle were due this past Tuesday. As part of CMAP's ongoing role in helping communities move from planning to implementation, CMAP provided letters of support for 12 implementation grant applications and served as a resource to several local partners as communities work to complete their applications. We want to continue to encourage communities to recognize CMAP as a resource to them as they pursue funding opportunities and advance projects that support safer streets for all users. We are hopeful for a strong round of awards. Moving on then to the next update, a land use database. CMAP has updated the land use inventory. This is for 2023. This is an amazing data set that is now available on CMAP's Data Hub, both in terms of breadth and depth. This data set identifies more than 50 different land categories in our region. So please do check it out and see how it can be helpful to your respective planning activities. Final update here is related to the the Century Plan, the region's next comprehensive plan. CMAP continues to convene partners and regional leaders through the Catalyst series, which is a set of conversations helping to shape the development of this next plan. Recent Catalyst series events have focused on climate action following the release of the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan for Greater Chicago, developed with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus and Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, who is also at the table here today. Looking ahead, CMAP's next Catalyst Series event will focus specifically on transportation and infrastructure. On June 23rd, CMAP will convene regional leaders and national experts in Joliet for a future-focused conversation on how our region can invest and innovate its transportation system for the next century. All of you around the table should have received an email invitation to this. This is taking place on June 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Joliet Area Historical Museum. We hope you can make it. So just turning to today's agenda, we have two key items for discussion before this committee. First is we will be asking this committee to recommend that the draft 2026 Regional Transportation Plan be released for public comment. For those who are just tuning in now, the Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP, is the region's long-range transportation policy and investment framework for the next 20 to 25 years. This committee has been working on this a lot over the past couple of years, so hoping that we can kind of get to this next milestone of releasing the draft for public comment. Then the committee will also receive a legislative update from Kasha Hart, including a federal update on the recently introduced transportation bill, the Build America 2050 Act. Kasha will also provide an update on state legislation being tracked in Springfield. That concludes my update. I'll turn things back over to the chair.
Thank you, Amy. We're moving on to agenda item 5.01, where Russ will provide an overview of the FY 2023 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program amendments. Good morning, Russ.
All right. Good morning. So I'm going to be up here for a couple items today, so get used to me. Included in your packet today are the 34 formal tip changes shown on Plan Revision 26-06 and the 102 tip changes shown on Administrative Plan Revisions 26-06.1 and 26-06.2. As shown in the memo, formal amendments resulted in an increase of $71.3 million in total project costs for all prior, current, and future years. A few highlights. As we just met about a month ago, so we haven't had a long time between transportation committees meetings, there weren't a lot of changes. However, there were 10 new projects that are on the formal amendment, 9 of which were submitted by IDOT, all of which involved resurfacing or ADA improvements, which are a fairly common project type that's seen in the tip. The big projects that get a lot of attention, there are a lot of big projects that get a lot of attention, but most of what we actually see in the tip are these kinds of projects, resurfacings, ADA improvements, stuff that is just maintaining the current infrastructure. In fact, every project that's on the formal plan revision is actually a maintenance project of some sort. Either a maintenance project, or it's buying rail cars, or it's paying back bonds for stuff that we've already done for transit. Administrative amendments increased the total cost by $55.4 million in the tip in all prior, current, and future years. The net change for the total cost in the tip from all amendments resulted in $126.7 million being added to the tip in prior, current, and future years. New projects and cost changes above the formal thresholds comprised most of the formal changes, while administrative amendments were primarily AC and ACC changes or cost changes below the formal threshold. Accounting for the amendments presented to you today, the tip remains fiscally constrained. The amendments were posted on May 22nd for committee and public review. Approval of formal tip amendment plan revision 26-06 is requested. And after the motion, if there are any questions, I can answer them at that time.
Thank you, Russ, for that overview.
FTA section 5307/5340, 5337, 5339, and section 5310. These funds are distributed annually through an urbanized area formula by FTA. The RTA, NERC, and Sewer PAC suballocate these funds to their respective areas based on agreements negotiated between the aforementioned parties. The RTA board approved the funding splits shown in the memo at their board meeting, which was just happened on May 21st. Approval of the recommendation by the Transportation Committee to the MPO Policy Committee for endorsement of the FTA suballocation is requested. And I can take any questions after the motion has been made if there are any.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the FY 2026 FTA sub allocations.
So moved, McHenry.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Second, RTA.
Thanks, Kyle. Motion is seconded. Are there any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're on agenda item 5.03. We're going to have John Hadsma up here to provide an overview of the FY 2027 to 2031 Local Transportation Improvement Program Plan revisions. Good morning, John.
Good morning. John Hadsma, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm on the federal funding team here at CMAP. So included in your packet today are links to the tip revisions for the 12 new STP local programs for federal fiscal year 2027 through 2031. These 12 programs use funding that CMAP receives through its federal STP allocation, which are allocated to the 11 sub-regional councils and the city of Chicago through a performance-based formula that was established in agreement between the council of mayors and the city of Chicago. And then to program these funds, the 12 selecting bodies develop their own methodologies, host a call for projects, analyze and score applications, seek input from the public, and construct these 5-year programs. All of these 12 selecting bodies held a call for projects between October through December of last year for federal fiscal years 2027 through 2031. The TIP revisions before this committee are a result of those call for projects and the continuation of projects selected from prior funding cycles. So if we move on to the next slide here, we'll see the 12 programs include 296 projects with a total of nearly $885 million in STP local funding. 199 of those projects are continuing from prior programming cycles, and 97 are new projects that add $229.1 million in STP local funding between 2027 and 2031. I do want to note that the South Council's full program was not submitted for inclusion in the TIP, and to avoid any project delays, CMAP staff completed necessary TIP changes, entries for projects programmed in federal fiscal year 2027. The South Council's STP local program will be brought forward for approval later this fall following adoption of the 27 through 32 TIP. For the programs before you today, the councils continue to focus investments mostly on construction, with 98.5% of the funding being programmed for construction phases. However, with that said, there are still 41 projects that will receive funding for engineering phases. And then if we move on to the next slide, we'll see the programs outlined by project type, which you'll notice that modernization and maintenance project types will receive the highest of funding, with a combined 64% of program funds. And very few of these are standalone street resurfacings. Many of them also include other project elements that improve safety, add, enhance, and repair bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, increase accessibility through ADA improvements, and strengthens resiliency in the region's transportation system. There are also 27 bicycle and pedestrian specific projects included in these programs, and there are 7 bridge repair, rehab, or replacement projects that account for 22.1% of the program funding. The TIP revisions that include these 12 programs maintain fiscal constraint for federal fiscal years 2027 through 2031, and they were posted for public review with your committee materials on May 22nd. So what's being requested today is that the Transportation Committee recommend approval of these 12 TIP revisions that encompass the federal fiscal year 2027 through 2031 STP local programs to the MPO Policy Committee for consideration at their June 11th meeting.
Thank you, John, for that overview. I'll entertain a motion to approve the FY 2027 to 2031 STP Local Transportation Improvement Program Plan revisions. Thank you, Amy. Do I have a second?
Second, DuPage.
Thanks, John. Motion has been seconded. Are there any questions? No questions for you, John. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Russ, you're back up. Here today, Russ will provide an overview of the 2026 RTP and FY 2027 to 2032 TIP conformity determination and regional capital projects plan revision. That's a mouthful.
It's going to be a little bit of a longer one. So we don't do this too often. So bear with me on this one. Included in your packet today is a memo that details the 2026 RTP and FFY 2027 to 2032 TIP conformity determination and regional capital projects plan revision. Both the 2026 RTP and the FFY 2027 to 2032 TIP need to demonstrate that they are conformed. The plan revision includes all the physically constrained regional capital projects, RCPs, and any projects that are not exempt from air quality requirements that submitted a conformity-related TIP change. As shown in the memo, there are 104 projects on this plan revision, 100 that are RCPs, of which 78 are not exempt from conformity requirements. Thus, through this plan revision, all physically constrained RCPs will be included in the TIP. The CMAP region is a non-attainment area for ozone. Thus, we are required under the Clean Air Act to demonstrate that projects in the TIP conform to the motor vehicle emissions budget for our area through a regional emissions analysis. Conformity for the 2026 RTP and the FFY 2027 to 2032 TIP is demonstrated by showing that projects in the TIP that are not exempt from air quality analysis when modeled through a regional emissions analysis do not exceed the motor vehicle emissions budget included in the state implementation plan approved by US EPA. The regional emissions CMAP conducted reflect the updated social economic forecast developed for the 2026 RTP and updates to CMAP's modeling process. The results of the regional emissions modeling is shown at the end of the memo included in your packet and shows that the region does not exceed the motor vehicle emissions budget for volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and nitrogen oxides, NOx. The plan revision, along with CMAP's emissions modeling process and regulatory requirements, were discussed at a Tier 2 interagency consultation meeting that was held on May 18th. Interagency consultation members were supportive of the process and procedures CMAP used for emissions modeling and the conformity process. Staff requests the committee's approval to recommend releasing the 2026 RTP, all RCPs, and FFY 2027-2032 TIP conformity determination plan revision for public comment to the MPO Policy Committee. And after the motion has been made, if there's any questions, I can answer them at that time.
Thank you, Russ. Do I have a motion to approve the 2026 RTP federal fiscal year 2027 to 2032 TIP conformity determination and regional capital projects plan revision? Thank you, Mayor.
Second
Do I
by
have a
Kane
second?
County.
Thank you. The motion is seconded. Are there any questions for Russ? Kyle?
Russ, the table that's at the end of the memo, it seems like we're projecting some, or the table is projecting some pretty massive decreases in these types of emissions. Can you talk more about that projection and who's making that and what that's based on?
Yeah, that's fairly common, especially the further out you go. What mainly is the driver in that is technological improvements to how vehicles operate. So, as old vehicles get replaced by new vehicles, as we model forward, we turn the fleet over. There's a process by which we do that with using an EPA tool. And it's really just that's a prime driver, is that we're just replacing older, more polluting vehicles with newer, more efficient, less polluting vehicles. Whether it's trucks, cars, or whatever, the fleets are just changing over roughly every 10 to 15 years, depending on the vehicle type.
And fuel efficiency alone would lead to those types of decreases of that.
It's not just fuel efficiency. I mean, they actually emit less emissions and things of that nature. They're just designed better. They go through the emissions inspection maintenance program. They're just, it's all part of it. There's a variety of things. There's some regulatory things that, different standards for different model years for different vehicles that they had to adhere to. So there's a whole series of regulatory stuff combined with just replacing older, more polluting vehicles with less polluting, newer vehicles. That combination over time really makes a big impact. But plus, we have a little bit more EVs than
Yeah, I was wondering about electrification and then also, transportation behavior, and if we're projecting reduction in VMT, if that contributes to that.
We're not projecting a reduction. It's pretty close to flat. It's a little bit of an increase, but it's been that way in our modeling process for some time.
Yeah.
So the results in the decreases that we see in, let's say, 2040 and 2050 are consistent with what we've seen in previous conformity modeling. We've always shown significant decreases in emissions in outer years than we do in the more near term.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Do we have a sense of whether those projected decreases from the efficiencies have borne out? Have we been looking at it for long enough to
Oh yeah, they definitely do. I mean, you just buy a new vehicle and it doesn't emit the same kind of emissions that a 30-year-old vehicle would.
Sure.
So
yeah, sure. I'm just sort of if you looked at this process 10 years ago, did the emissions decrease as much as we projected? Because, other like
So you
VNC
can't-
may have gone up.
Unfortunately, we can't do that.
Can't do that.
For a variety of reasons, the data changes, the models change, and the models take different assumptions. One of the unique things about emissions modeling is that it actually incorporates regulatory changes that are on the books that take effect in future years. So we wouldn't have had some of those in the past, or different regulatory environment. So it's really hard to compare models. The model has had a significant upgrade about 3 years ago. And so EPA is constantly doing testing. They have a testing facility by the University of Michigan. And so they're always trying to better replicate real world conditions in their model. So it's constant model improvement. So we can't really always compare what we've done in the past to what we can do now.
And the model that you're using is not a CMAP model, right? This is
No, we are regulatorily required to use the MOVES model. And the MOVES model is from EPA, US EPA. So, but it does reflect changes on the socioeconomic forecast and travel behavior based on the new 2026 regional transportation plan.
Thank you. And Amy has a question or statement.
Yeah, just additional context, right? The modeling is purely around motor vehicles. And so when we do say have sensors out there to pick up on what's actually going on in the air, it's also picking up from other things. And so something that we noticed particularly last year were the impacts related to the wildfires in Canada. So there's a lot of other factors in play too.
Yeah, transportation has a range of about 25 to 33% of total ozone emission contribution. So there are lots of things that contribute to ozone, which is what we're measuring here.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. At this time, we'll ask all those in favor.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Ryan Tomto is approaching the podium, and he will provide an overview of the draft regional transportation plan. Welcome, Ryan.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. As Tara mentioned, my name is Ryan Tomto. I'm a principal policy analyst here at CMAP. And I'm here to present on the regional transportation plan. And today really marks a significant milestone in the process that has taken years of work, thousands of conversations, and contributions from people across the region, as well as everyone in this room. Today's RTP agenda item is asking the committee to recommend to CMAP's board and MPO policy committee that they release the draft 2026 regional transportation plan, or RTP, for public comment. Before we get to that ask, I want to take a few moments to reflect on how we got here, the work that went into this draft, the partners who shaped it, and what it means for the region we serve. This presentation is organized around 3 things: what we did, what you'll find in the draft plan, and what comes next. I want to approach this moment with the same values that guided the planning process itself: gratitude for the collaboration that made this possible, ambition for what the region can achieve together, and a sense of stewardship over a process that doesn't end when the plan is adopted. So in that spirit of gratitude, earlier this year, I spoke about the federal framework that created the metropolitan planning process. This can best be summarized by 3 words: cooperative, comprehensive, and continuing. Those are not just procedural requirements, they are a philosophy, and one that is easy to state, but much harder to actually do. As a reminder, cooperative means that planning is not something one agency does, but it's something we do together as a region. It means that the people affected by transportation decisions have a meaningful role in shaping them, not just at the end of the process, but throughout it. And it means that the expertise is distributed, that no single organization has a complete picture all on its own, and that the plan is produced through a genuine partnership that will always be better than a plan that was produced without it. Everything you see on this slide and a few of the examples of intentional spaces that were created for that cooperative planning process to take place. It looks like the CMAP board and MPO policy committee, who provided governing direction and accountability throughout a multi-year process. It looks like you, the Transportation Committee, not just as a review body, but as a genuine contributor to the substance of this work. It looks like groups like the Community Alliance for Regional Equity, Future Leaders in Planning, the Regional Mobility Council, all who brought community perspectives into a process that can too easily become a conversation among the usual players. It looks like the resource groups that gave time and expertise at every stage of the work. And it looks like the thousands of individuals across Northeastern Illinois, residents, advocates, local officials, practitioners, folks in the room here today, coming together to respond to surveys, come to meetings, submitting comments, and just simply telling us how the transportation system impacts their daily lives. They didn't have to do that. They did it because they care about the region, and that is what the cooperative planning process looks like. The plan is the result of it, and it's better because of the partnership that went into it. So we're genuinely grateful. On the next slide, I also just want to take a moment to recognize the team of people at CMAP who contributed directly to this plan. You all are typically seeing me up here at the podium or Julie, and that's appropriate. We're the folks leading the work. But there's a whole crew who's on the team who have directly worked on aspects of the regional plan, whether it went into the existing conditions work, the data, the analysis, the evaluation. Every piece of this process had these folks working to contribute to creating the plan. And the reality is that this 2026 RTP was produced by this large, talented, and deeply committed team, most of whom you rarely see in the room. So I wanted to just take a moment to give them props and express gratitude for all the hard work they put into it. So turning to the process, and as a reminder of how we got here, I think this slide is one you all are probably fairly familiar with at this point. It captures the process at a very high level, centered around the three questions of what is the future transportation system we want, what are the challenges and opportunities to get there, and how will we actually achieve it? So I think, Vicki, this is where the animation comes in. We're going to focus in on the first part and mentioning that every good plan starts with listening, and that there was no exception to that here. We began with an extensive listening tour, reaching out to communities, stakeholders, partner agencies, and members of this committee and the board, as well as the MPO Policy Committee, to understand what people cared about most when it came to transportation in Northeastern Illinois. That led to the next slide, which helped, all this engagement helped inform the goals and objectives in the emerging priorities report. And this really helped anchor the process from there on. This wasn't a document produced in isolation. It was built from what we heard from hundreds of conversations across the region, as well as from other planning work that has happened, whether it was the Plan of Action for Regional Transit, Transit is the Answer by RTA, congestion management strategy, speed management, the county safety action plans, comprehensive climate action plan, transportation resiliency improvement plan, you name it. We were looking at countywide comprehensive plans, some local plans. All of that helped shape the goals and objectives that went into the emerging priorities report. So from there, once we had those priorities established, we needed to better understand the challenges and opportunities facing the region. So on the next slide, you can see we focused in on that next question. How has the system been performing? And what does the future needs for the region look like? And where are their gaps? So this led to the existing conditions report, which gave us clear-eyed baseline. It included a comprehensive assessment of the transportation network as it exists today. The report examined travel reliability, safety trends, asset conditions, accessibility gaps, freight performance, and the relationship between the transportation system and the broader economy. It identified where the system is working, where it is under stress, and where the gap between current performance and regional goals are the widest. So understanding current conditions was only one part of the picture. We also needed to understand where the region is headed, how population, households, and employment are likely to shift through 2050, and what those changes mean for how people travel. So the socioeconomic forecast provides those projections. The travel demand model then translates them into travel patterns, how many trips, by what mode, between which origins and destinations, giving us a picture of what the transportation system will be asked to do in the decades ahead. Together, these tools bridge the gap between existing conditions and future needs. They are the analytical foundation for the financially constrained investment decisions that are included in the plan. And I want to just take a moment to highlight some of the improvements that were made this cycle, including the socioeconomic forecast being strengthened through regional input and oversight by forming two advisory groups, one of municipal staff across the region sharing draft forecast results with Council of Mayors to gather feedback and better reflect conditions. The other being working to incorporate expert review through a technical advisory group of demography and forecasting experts from across the state. There was also included was improved forecast accuracy with development data by creating the Northeastern Illinois Development Database, WebMap, which collected more than 200 known developments across the region. We also created a comprehensive forecast evaluation process that checks the forecast for consistency with recent population and employment trends, alignment with external forecasts, and credibility based on local knowledge. So once we had a better understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing the region, we worked to proceed to answer the third question of how are we actually going to achieve the transportation system we want by 2050. So this is really the strategy development phase, where analysis and engagement converged into concrete policy direction. The emerging priorities report had established what we were aiming for. The existing conditions and future needs work helped us understand what we're working with. So the strategy development was really the task of connecting those two things. And to support the strategy development, we engaged our consultant partners at High Street, Kemple, and CDM Smith to produce a series of policy briefs, targeted research documents that gave us and our transportation partners a shared analytical foundation for key decisions. These briefs covered a wide range of topics. Some reinforced and deepened our understanding of very familiar issues. Others broke new ground in areas like intercity bus and rail, as well as emerging technologies. Strategy development also included work to develop a stronger financial foundation. We made significant investments in improving the financial plan this cycle, and I want to highlight three of the key improvements. First, we updated and strengthened our forecasting capability, which improves our ability to assess transportation enhancement costs. Second, we developed a new financial risk assessment tool that stress tests the plan's assumptions. So then rather than presenting a single financial forecast as if the future were certain, this tool helped us to identify conditions and changes, shifts in things like construction costs, federal funding levels, travel behavior that could affect the financial outlook. And what it means for the region's ability to invest strategically. Third, we produced a series of revenue-focused policy briefs, including work on the road usage charge, a sales tax modernization, tolling, freight fees, and others. These gave our partners a shared analytical foundation for the revenue conversations that the plan calls for. Those briefs are referenced in the draft RTP and are available on the RTP engagement site. In parallel with this strategy development, we were also undertaking important work to update the policies and procedures that govern how regional capital projects are identified, evaluated, and managed. This work shaped how the region's transportation investments are structured and advanced. 4 updates are worth highlighting. First, we renamed it to help try to avoid confusion with air quality conformity terminology. Second, we updated the definitions and thresholds that determine which projects qualify as regional capital projects. And as we adjusted those thresholds, it was critical that those changes did not create unintended consequences. And so I really do want to highlight all of the engagement that we had with the resource group and members, particularly folks at IDOT like Steve Schelke, who really helped us avoid unintended consequences of road diets, where our original proposed changes could have caught those up and slowed them down in a way that made them less feasible. So really grateful for all the time and effort that you helped with us offline to make sure we fine-tune those just right so that we weren't holding up efforts to move forward with road diets or other projects that help address vulnerable transportation users. Third, we updated the evaluation criteria used to assess regional capital projects, strengthening the connection between project selection and the RTP's goals. Those criteria are now more explicitly tied to the performance outcomes across safety, mobility, state of good repair, and other measures. Also really want to just highlight the partnership with IDOT and RTA and all the data that they helped us help share with us and help us to better understand how to incorporate into the process. This really helped us have a more performance-driven process. And there was a lot of time and effort that was kind of out of line of sight for resource group members or this committee. But it really resulted in a much better product. So wanted to express gratitude for that. So taken together, these updates made the Regional Capital Projects Program more transparent, more consistent, and better aligned with the plan's goals. Before we end this recap of the last couple years, want to just also mention and acknowledge the extensive stakeholder and public engagement that happened throughout the process. Engagement was woven into every phase, from the listening tour that shaped the Emerging Priorities Report, numerous public outreach activities across every county in the region, through multiple rounds of stakeholder feedback and strategy investment priorities, to the robust number of public comments we've received in recent months. So with that, let's now turn to see, kind of look into what you'll find when you review the draft RTP. So I want to start at the beginning, when we made a deliberate choice of how to begin the plan. The first words of the 2026 RTP are not a statement of purpose or a list of federal requirements or even an explanation of what CMAP is. The first words are, before the sun rises, Northeastern Illinois is already moving. Freight trains sorting cargo, trucks keeping supply chains moving, early shift workers making their way to bus stops and rail platforms. It goes on to explain real people and how their lives are impacted by the transportation system, most of them not knowing that a document like an RTP exists, or probably even that CMAP exists, if we're being honest. But the decisions and the conversations that are taking place to develop this plan matter deeply to their daily lives. And so we wanted to start the plan in a way that acknowledges that and kicks us off with this idea that everything that follows really has real consequences. From that opening, the plan makes the argument that the region has a world-class transportation network, that this did not happen by accident, that it was built generation by generation by people who chose to invest in infrastructure that outlasted them. But now we also stand at a crossroads. The infrastructure is aging, the funding is under pressure, the safety record is moving in the wrong direction, and the potential the system has to serve more people and communities more effectively remains unrealized. The question the plan poses and keeps returning to is, what is the kind of region that our residents will inherit in 2050? So the goals, objectives, and strategies are organized into 5 chapters. This is connections, safety, environment, economy, and strategically governing, funding, and preserving the system. But I want to be clear about something, that these are not 5 separate kind of siloed topics. They are all interconnected. The connections chapter documents a region that frequently ranks among the most congested in the country, where more than 70% of IDOT's expressways have exceeded their functional life, and where nearly half of all households have limited or no access to transit. The safety chapter confronts a roadway safety crisis that peaked at more than 700 traffic deaths in 2021 and has not recovered to pre-pandemic levels, driven in large part by speeding, growing fleet of heavier vehicles, and infrastructure that was not designed with today's mix of users in mind. The climate chapter examines a transportation sector that accounts for roughly 1/3 of the region's greenhouse gas emissions, a network where 34% of the non-local roads face high or very high flood risk, and a transit system where the overwhelming majority of bus stops offer no shelter from the elements. The economy chapter finds a region where job growth has lagged pure metros, where freight rail travel times have more than doubled since 2016, and where development patterns continue to extend infrastructure obligations faster than revenues they generate. And the financial chapter documents what underlies all of it: a structural funding gap driven by aging assets, construction costs that have outpaced revenues for decades, but even more so recently, and revenue sources that have become increasingly unstable. What the plan makes clear is that these are not the 5 separate problems. They are dimensions of the same challenge. You cannot close that safety gap without investing in multimodal infrastructure. You cannot manage the region's fiscal obligations without making smarter decisions about where development occurs. You cannot strengthen the region's economy without a reliable, accessible transportation system. The strategies that follow from each chapter are designed with those connections in mind, and the priority investments that close out the plan reflect them. So the plan's goal chapters all converge on this priorities investments chapter, which identifies those 15 projects and programs that best translate the plan's goals into action. These were selected through a rigorous performance-based evaluation process, applying consistent criteria across all proposed investments and assessing their effects on safety, mobility, emissions, and system preservation. That process was complemented by the stakeholder and public engagement you heard about earlier, which added local context and lived experience that data alone cannot capture. So these 15 investments include both specific capital projects and broader programmatic investments. The projects demonstrate where strategies translate into tangible on-the-ground improvements in specific corridors and communities, and the programs establish long-term strategic direction, where preserving flexibility in how that direction is carried out is recognizing that some strategies are more effective when deployed across the region rather than in a single location. It's important to note that all fiscally constrained regional capital projects remain eligible for federal funding, even though they're not, all listed on this priority list. The priority list is really just meant to identify the investments where the region's collective ambition and resources are best aligned to deliver the most region-wide change. I also just want to take a moment to address the one project on the list that has received the most attention lately, North DeSable Lakeshore Drive improvements. Members of this committee are well aware that this project has generated significant public engagement throughout the RTP process, including testimony at previous TC meetings and a substantial volume of written comment. We heard that feedback, we take it seriously, and we are grateful to everyone who has taken the time to engage. Because of that level of engagement on this project, we have included an attachment in today's meeting packet that summarizes the public comments received, explains in detail the basis for our recommendation that the project remain on the constrained and priority investment lists. If you haven't already, I really do encourage you to read it. The short version of it is this: the RTP operates at a level of regional eligibility, not project design. Keeping a project on the constrained list does not reflect a preferred alternative. It does not define a scope or authorize construction. It keeps the door open for a facility that has significant and well-documented state of good repair needs to access the resources it needs to advance through the project development process. A process that is where the specific decisions that I know the commenters that have commented in the past, and I'm sure will be commenting today, care most about and where those decisions are made. On that front, I want to be clear about where things stand. IDOT and CDOT have been conducting an environmental review of this corridor for a number of years. In 2024, they released a recommended preferred alternative that received significant public comment. Based on that feedback, IDOT and CDOT are revisiting that alternatives analysis with updated modeling data to reassess the recommended preferred alternative. That work continues to be underway. No preferred alternative has been selected or finalized at this time. When that updated analysis is complete, there will be meaningful opportunities for the public to continue to shape the outcome. We strongly encourage everyone who has been engaged on this project to remain engaged. The attachment in today's packet addresses all of this in much greater detail. And so with that, we move on to the conclusion of the RTP. And it really kind of is focused around a simple statement that a plan is a promise. The 2026 Regional Transportation Plan commits Northeastern Illinois to a clear direction, protect what works, repair what is failing, and unlock the untapped potential of a system that, when it operates as designed, is world-class. But a plan is only a promise, and a promise requires follow-through. And that work is long, non-linear, and requires sustained participation from residents, local government, transportation agencies, and elected officials at every level. This milestone of releasing the draft plan for public comment does matter, but as I've said before, this is a continuous process. The drafting of this plan is really just the beginning of that work, not the end of it. I also want to point out in the conclusion, we really do frame the call to action for the plan around a metaphor, two sides of the ledger. On one side of the ledger are the region's obligations, the aging infrastructure, the deferred maintenance, 30 billion capital backlog, and development patterns that have expanded the system's footprint without always expanding the funding to maintain it. On the other side are revenues and the strategies that can reduce what the region owes over time. Not just more funding, but smarter decisions. We've tried to capture that in a graphic. Here's what it looks like when both sides of the ledger move in the right direction, which is the next slide. This plan identifies the specific revenue mechanisms that can strengthen the revenue side, expanding tolling on facilities that currently have none, shifting from a motor fuel tax to a road usage charge that charges drivers based on miles rather than fuel consumed, establishing a dedicated regional revenue source that does not depend on state distribution formulas, and modernizing the state sales tax to capture how today's economy actually generates wealth. The plan is explicit. These are not aspirational ideas. They are the specific tools the region should pursue with urgency. The transportation investments that are included on the constrained list cannot happen in their entirety without these revenues. But the plan is equally explicit about something that is more difficult to contend with, that new revenues alone will not solve the problem. If the region takes on obligations faster than revenues can offset through land use decisions that push development into places that transportation system cannot serve efficiently, through governance fragmentation that adds cost and time to every project, through missed opportunities to manage demand before it becomes congestion, the gap will persist regardless of what new funding sources are secured. You cannot fill a ledger that keeps generating new obligations faster than you can fund them. This is why the strategies that reduce obligations matter as much as the strategies to grow revenues. Intelligent transportation systems that expand capacity without building new infrastructure, travel demand management strategies that shift trips, spread peak loads, and reduce system burdens before it accumulates. More coordinated land use decisions that promote strategic infill development so the system can sustainably serve it. Governance reforms that streamline project delivery and make investment decisions that reflect long-term stewardship rather than short-term convenience. Both sides of the ledger have to move. That is the argument the draft plan makes, and it's the commitment the plan asks the region to make in return. And so at the very end of the conclusion, the conclusion puts it fairly simply: the region cannot ask more of its residents and users without asking more of its transportation agencies and local governments. More transparency, more coordination, more accountability. Not exactly easy conversations, but ones we know we need to have and that we have had and we will continue to have. Because the alternative of not doing so is a ledger that grows harder and harder to manage with every deferred decision and leaves the residents of 2050 with a much worse off system. So with that, we'll turn to next steps. And so on the next slide and the one after this one, what we are asking the committee today is to recommend that CMAP recommend to this CMAP board and the MPO Policy Committee to authorize the release of the draft 2026 Regional Transportation Plan for public comment. That recommendation opens the plan to the scrutiny of public review, which is appropriate, necessary, and consistent with the cooperative planning process that produced it. It is also an acknowledgement that this plan, as strong as we believe it to be, is not yet finished. Public comment will sharpen it, and the implementation work that follows adoption will be where its values are ultimately measured. We are grateful to this committee for your role you have played in bringing the plan to this point and for your consideration of this recommendation today. Pending a vote by the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee, the draft plan will be made available for public comment beginning June 12th and run through July 31st. A federally required public hearing is scheduled for August 6th at 3 p.m. Here at the CMAP office and will also be accessible remotely. Following the public comment period, staff will work to address comments received and provide a summary of them, as well as any changes to the plan made in response to them, to the committee later this year at your September meeting, where we will be back to ask you to recommend adoption of the plan to the CMAP Board and MPO Policy Committee at their joint meeting in October. So once again, I want to express my gratitude for your collaboration throughout this process. And after the motion, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve releasing this draft regional transportation plan for public comment.
So moved, Tolway.
Second, IDOT.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Brandon. It's okay. So we have a motion approved and seconded. Are there any questions on the RTP? Kyle.
This may be a question for IDOT and CDOT related to the update on North of Sabo Lakeshore Drive. The work that's happening on the modeling to look again at an alternative. Is there any timeline for that work, and how does it relate to a timeline to seek federal funding for the project?
Steve Schulge with IDOT. I guess the question is, what is the overall timeline for DuSable, or even looking at new modeling work? We're still probably likely a year out. I mean, this also will impact modeling in October once the plan gets adopted, because that also moves the socioeconomic impacts. Right now, we're looking at getting all new data, so that we're probably about a year in. We probably still have about a year to go. Ultimately, with the environmental impact statement, we're likely 2-3 years away from actually getting something. Once there's kind of just a general understanding of really the alternatives, right? So we're still likely a couple years away. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Yes. You go.
Hugo Coronado with MPC. I also, on the modeling, I'm curious, how are you gonna incorporate with this new influx in funding in transit, and how that can change how we perceive this corridor now that transit is becoming a way to reduce congestion in our region? And a second question that I have is, are there gonna be venues maybe for all of the stakeholders involved, including those critics to the project, to kind of like bring them back together and just discuss the results of those modeling, and also as a way to rebuild that trust between all of the stakeholders involved?
Yes, I guess that was a two-part question. Is the modeling going to account for the Northern Illinois Transit Agency? That hasn't been formed yet. I think that's next month. I think we went for an advertisement recently for the consultant, right? So the impacts of that are not known yet, but that's certainly something that, I think everybody on this committee here is keeping our eye on. It's going to change a lot of what we do, right? So that's something else that will likely certainly influence really all of our projects, So right now it's undetermined, I would say, on that front. As far as public involvement, yes. Right now, after that last public meeting, we're kind of going back to data collection, so that takes time. So unfortunately, we're in the taking time phase, but then there will be more robust public involvement as soon as we kind of go through that modeling effort. So yes, there will certainly be a lot more public involvement on this project.
So using DuSable Lakeshore Drive as an example, right? I mean, that study I'm hearing you, Steve, is ongoing. So it's ongoing, and it's going to take a couple years. And I took some notes, Ryan, on the presentation, and we call them projects, regional capital projects. And it's almost a misnomer, because it implies, it infers that the scope is predetermined, right? And I wanted to point out to everybody here, I also see them as, we're flagging opportunity areas. We know there's something that has to be addressed. Sometimes it's age and condition. Sometimes it's congestion. Sometimes it's safety. Sometimes we want to realize on the billions of dollars that the tollway puts into their system, right? How do we enhance the local system for the region and for our residents? So each project that's listed there is in varying stages of its development, right? So some of the projects that are on the list are still an idea. It's still being formed. And I hear that about DuSable Lakeshore Drive, and the robust participation that we have is informing that. But I'm hearing, Steve, that it's going to take some time for the data to get pulled together so that there's something, a basis to present back to the public for their feedback. So no shortage of challenges, Ryan, in terms of trying to pull together. And I think the other thing that the regional transportation plan does is it allow any project that's in the plan, it allows for the infusion of federal aid funds. Because I know on the scale, I love that image, right? Because how do we get more money into our region? The federal dollar is really where we are able to realize we put our local dollars to work, and we're really able to stretch the local dollar with that infusion of federal funds. So positioning these projects, highlighting them as opportunities and needs really allows for those infusion of federal dollars to the region, and also helps make these projects more competitive because CMAP has highlighted them as a need, right? And that is inclusive and reflective of all the outreach that the CMAP team has done. Do we have any other questions on the RTP? Yes.
Hi, Amy with the Active Transportation Alliance. I appreciate that you guys are working on a new analysis. The ecosystem on transportation has changed so much since the project started and is evolving rapidly, continues to evolve rapidly. And a lot of what's been done today does feel like a really different era. In fact, some of the people we're hearing from have come of age since the project started. So much has changed on such a long project. I'm wondering, and you don't have to answer this, Steve, it's not exactly a question for IDOT, but I think we do need to break out of the cycle that's really frustrating where no one's happy with what's on the table. And I know data is a piece of that, but I wonder if we can lean into independent mediators or somebody to help guide the process to conclusion. Because if we were waiting a few more years, that's just a lot of opportunity for continuing to feel stuck on this. So just an idea to look at some reform structure for the project to help us get through the moment. So that's one thought. The other thought is getting a better handle on our committee's role in how we intersect with project implementers on projects of such regional significance and such cost. And so we've just heard all the effort we put into a regional vision that has embedded in it all these really important things about connectivity for people, climate, health, safety. But it does often feel like there's a big gap between our goals and what happens. So I'm just wondering, again, a question that we don't need to answer today, how we leverage the power of the MPO to hold us all more accountable towards reaching those goals we're laying out in these plans. So I don't have the answers, just questions.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. I think another challenge that we have before us, and I think it was John Hadsma's presentation where he highlighted for the local surface transportation program, there's 137 individual project sponsors, right? So, I mean, it's an equation with thousands of variables because each of these communities has, wants to control their own destiny and wants to do the best for the residents and for the region. And what perch are we at on this committee? And I think we continually explore that as each meeting goes by. Thank you. Kara.
Jen.
Sorry.
Sorry. We keep mixing it up on you, so it's not your fault. So I wanted to sort of partially answer Hugo's question about the impact of the transit bill, right? Like one thing we do know, right, is that we're funded. And so that will allow us to continue to provide the high level of service that we do on this corridor and potentially even increase it, right? So that's one good impact, right? And, this is an IDOT and CDOT project. CTA is a stakeholder. Just wanted to sort of appreciate the fact that it's being acknowledged in this way in response to so much public comment. I think that's important and provides a good starting place, even though we've got challenges with timeline. CTA's position on this project has always been, we want to find a way to enhance the transit significantly. It's a really important corridor for us without significant impacts to the park, because we recognize the importance of the park as well, right? And just for those of you who are not familiar with the corridor, right, like almost everyone in the region has probably been on the corridor at some point, right? But in terms of a transit corridor, that might be invisible, especially on weekends, right? We carry as many people in buses on North Lakeshore Drive as any Metro line, and I don't say that in a competitive way. I say that to just sort of highlight how big of a transit corridor is. So that's all. Thanks. We look forward to collaborating on modified alternatives.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay, thank you for a good discussion. The motion has been made and seconded. So all those in favor of approving this draft release of the plan for comment? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, Doug Ferguson is here. We're on agenda item 5.06. Doug will provide an overview of the federal fiscal year 2027 to 2032 Transportation Improvement Program.
Good morning. Federal regulations mandate the update of the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, by October 2026. Included in your materials today is a draft TIP document for federal fiscal years 2027 to 2032, which discusses how the TIP implements the recommendations of the 2026 draft RTP and onto 2050 within the constraints of the updated financial plan, and describes the federal, state, and local resources available. Staff requests the committee's approval to recommend releasing the federal fiscal year 2027 to 2032 Transportation Improvement Program for public comment to the MPO Policy Committee. The public comment period will run concurrently with the 2026 draft RTP from June 12th through July 31st, and a finalized version of the TIP document along with a TIP project listing will be brought back to this committee at your September meeting. So with that, I'm willing to take any questions.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the draft federal fiscal year 2027 to 2032 Transportation Improvement Program for public comment. Mike, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for the second. Are there any questions from the committee? I do have one myself. And so you mentioned, Doug, that June 12th through the July 31st is the public comment period. So that's the same. So the TIP is out for public comment for the same time as the RTP.
That's correct.
So we've got like the alphabet soup. So the Transportation Improvement Program that we're talking about now is for projects in the next 5 years. Right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And the regional transportation plan is our North Star of projects and opportunities and challenges to take us from now to 2050 as a region.
Correct. Yep.
So 2 separate documents, same public comment period.
Yep.
Okay.
But
I got confused when I read the agenda.
documents. Like, I mean, one's helping implement the other in a
So
short.
they're complementary.
Right. Correct.
And just kind of under the umbrella of the TIP. Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay. All right. So all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. All right, we're on to the legislative update. Kasia is here to provide an update on federal and state legislative activity. Lots happening.
Lots happening, and hopefully I'm not adding too much to the alphabet soup here. Tara, we'll see. But hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. So just a quick federal and state legislative update. On May 17th, the House T&I Committee filed their Surface Transportation Reauthorization Proposal. As Amy noted, it's called the Build America 250 Act. So this would serve as the successor to IIJA, which is set to expire on September 30th of this year. The bill did advance out of House T&I, but has not been heard by the full House floor yet. We also have not yet seen any Senate language, so just want to reiterate what I've said previously. There's still a lot of work to do. before this bill expires, which does make a CR increasingly likely. But I will include a few highlights from what's in the Build America 250 Act. It would authorize $580 billion for surface transportation programs over the next 5 fiscal years. So it's FY 27 to 31, covering funding for federal highways, bridges, and transit. Of that 580 billion, only 474 billion is guaranteed funding. The remaining 100 billion would need to be allocated through the annual federal appropriations process, which does mean it just introduces more uncertainty year over year. I think one piece of good news, there is guaranteed funding for crucial programs like SS4A that was codified into law in this proposal, starting at $500 million next fiscal year, growing to $1 billion in the final year of the bill. There's also a new bridge program funded at $9 billion annually. MEGA is reauthorized at IIJA levels with expanded eligibility to include public transportation projects eligible under the CIG program in large urbanized areas. And then CMAP eligibility is also broadened to include projects that deploy advanced transportation and congestion management technologies and projects supporting digital infrastructure. So we have some new programs, some programs with expanded eligibilities, but several discretionary programs are also repealed under this proposal, including the Carbon Reduction Program and Protect. But with the expanded eligibility under CMAQ, there may still be opportunity for those projects to receive funding. In general, we are seeing a shift from discretionary to formula programs in this proposal, which was expected. With this shift comes a new program called the Surface Transportation Accelerator Grant Program. So this would replace a number of those discretionary grant programs, and formula funding levels would be boosted above current IIJA levels for road and transit funding. One last item I'll highlight as part of this package. There's many more details underneath all of these, of course. But as currently proposed, metropolitan planning or PL funding would be increased by about 10%, and MPOs would be eligible to become direct recipients of PL funding. The federal share of PL funds would also increase to 90%, and PL eligibility would expand to include preliminary design, local technical assistance, fiscal administration of local projects, transportation studies, and critical data procurement. So what this means is we would have more PL funding as an MPO and a wider variety of authorized uses for that funding. So I just want to reiterate, we're still very early in this process. You know, the Senate has to draft and consider their version of reauthorization legislation, and then appropriations committees in both chambers need to debate and pass funding bills. IIJA funds are set to expire at the end of September. So again, increasingly likely that we will see a continuing resolution while both chambers continue to debate. We're going to continue conversations with our delegation as this process moves forward so that we're maximizing the benefits to the region in any reauthorization legislation that moves forward. That is what I have on the federal side. Just very quickly on the state side, we have about 2.5 days, I think, left of this legislative session, which ends on May 31st. Still a lot of bills before the General Assembly, not least of which is the FY27 budget. One piece of legislation that we're tracking, I'm sure you all are following as well, is the NETA trailer bill, which is Senate Amendment 2 on House Bill 2335. This is a technical trailer bill versus one with more kind of substantive policy changes. Importantly, the bill does clarify that the RTA board remains in effect until September 1st, 2026, at which point the NETA board goes into effect. This bill passed out of the Senate Transportation Committee last night and is headed to the Senate floor for a vote. So we are actively tracking what's happening in Springfield and in DC for its impacts to the region. With that, happy to answer any questions folks have.
Yes, Kyle.
I just want to mention on the federal front, Kasia was talking about the reauthorization bill, the multi-year reauthorization bill that expires in September, which is important, as she was explaining. There's also the 2027 appropriations bill that passed out of subcommittee and is moving in the House. So this is the amount of funding for transportation in 2027. It's particularly critical this year because with IIJA expiring in September, there's, they included an advanced appropriations structure in IIJA where there was a certain amount of guaranteed funding for transit and for overall transportation projects. The assumption is that is going away in the next reauthorization bill. And also, as Kasha was explaining, the assumption is there that a new reauthorization bill will not pass in advance of the expiration in September, right? So this appropriations bill is really going to drive the funding for next year. And the draft that's advancing in the House includes a cut of more than 20% for public transit projects. I don't need to tell the folks around this table, like rising construction costs and inflation, even if funding was kept flat, it would be harmful to transit capital projects all across the region at a time where we're trying to infuse the system with operating and capital funds to improve service for riders. So I know RTA is planning to partner with the Illinois Public Transportation Association and do outreach to our full congressional delegation around this appropriations bill over the next several months. And we certainly would appreciate support and participation from agencies at this table and the public and try to make sure that we can at the very least minimize the harm in a potential transit funding cut at the federal level for 2027.
Thank you, Kyle. Question, both of you mentioned guaranteed funding, and then you mentioned that then it would go to federal appropes. Is that with reference to the Highway Trust Fund?
Yeah, that's funding that's here.
I think your mic's off,
I
yeah.
thought it turned green, sorry. That is the distinction between funding that's guaranteed through reauthorization versus what would be subject to annual appropriations.
Okay, so the Federal Highway Trust Fund is going to become insolvent by like 2028 or something, and then the feds are they're rating the general fund to pay for transportation.
Another provision I didn't note it in my remarks, but the Build America 250 Act does call for a federal EV registration fee as in one way to address the insolvency of the Highway Trust Fund. But I think there's an open question whether or not that would be sufficient.
Okay.
Increasing, adding another revenue stream to that.
Thank you. So there's the legislative part of it with passing a new capital bill, but then there's also the funding part of it is a challenge and where there's many moving pieces besides continuing levels like you mentioned, Kyle.
Yeah, and there's the issue of contract authority, like how much of this money is guaranteed through formula and how much of this money is susceptible to congressional intervention year to year in the appropriations process. And IIJA was structured in a way that there was a good chunk of the funding that Congress couldn't mess with year to year. And it looks like that's going to go away in the next reauthorization, which makes these year to year appropriations fights more critical.
Right. Very informative. Thank you. Any other questions for Kasha? Amy?
Just wondering if you're tracking the calls for a sales tax, holiday on gas tax, and what that impacts, how that would impact the region.
We've been tracking that. I don't know that any of that will move forward. I think that that's not necessarily an unusual call to see at times when gas prices are high. So I think if conversations advance, we'll certainly, take a closer look at that. But understand that's happening at both the state and federal levels right now. And we'll continue to monitor.
Any other questions for Kasha?
Can I make a plug again? If this is of interest to you, this discussion about how do we continue to fund and invest in our transportation system, I want to remind you again, we're going to have our Catalyst event on this topic on June 23rd. Invites are in your inbox, so please join us in that conversation.
Thank you both. Okay, moving on to other business. Is there any other business that committee members would like to bring forward at this time? All right, seeing none, we will move on to public comment. So we have 37 members of the public who have requested to speak during the public comment period. And due to the large number of requests for public comments, it was noted in the agenda that, at the discretion of the chair, I would like to entertain a motion to modify the comment time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. So I'd like to put that forward to see if there is a motion and a second for reducing that comment time
So
from
moved.
3 minutes to 2 minutes so we could hear everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. And a second from Mike from Lake County. Appreciate it. Okay, so the motion is made and seconded. Are there any questions? Comments? All right, all those in favor of changing the comment time to 2 minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so comments are now limited to 2 minutes per person. And as noted on the agenda, the total cumulative time for comment is 15 minutes. However, at the end of the 15 minutes, a motion and second can be made for the committee to vote to extend the comment period by 15-minute intervals. So this was also noted on the agenda. I'm just going to reiterate it for everyone's information that public comments will be taken in the following order. Comments from in-person attendees that requested to speak in advance. Then comments from in-person attendees that weren't previously submitted. Then we'll go to virtual attendees via Zoom who requested to speak ahead of time. Then virtual attendees via Zoom that weren't previously submitted. And then we'll move lastly to comments written or emailed in the order that they were received. If there are any more folks that wish to make a comment, please do fill out a comment card and return it to a staff member. Okay, so I'm going to give the first 3 names just so folks can anticipate when you'll be called up to the podium. The first name is William Rudnick. Second is Chloe Groom. And third is Felix Teo. So William, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, everybody. My name is William Rudnick. I'm a resident of Lakeview. I live in the 46th Ward, and I'm here to give public comment about the North Lakeshore Drive Redefine the Drive proposed plan. I understand that, well, I'm learning every day more about what CMAP is, but my understanding is that you've acknowledged that you guys are the people who basically hold the keys to federal funding so that any major project could go forward. And I would just ask that everybody who sits on this committee, that they take into account that all of the feedback that's been given by all these people who want to advocate for a better Lakeshore Drive that isn't just a highway, that really serves everybody and recognizes that times are changing and times have changed, and any project that results in more cars being in downtown Chicago, it shouldn't be taken seriously. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you all for being here today. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, William. Chloe?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Chloe Groom, and I live in West Loop, so I actually walked here today. I'm here to urge CMAP to champion a transparent, community-driven vision that reflects what Chicagoans have been asking for over a decade. We have a really incredible opportunity to truly redefine the drive. The Illinois House passed H.R. 438 unanimously, calling for a true boulevard and real investment in transit and green mobility. 14 older people representing the lakefront have echoed that call. The Regional Transit Authority's own chairman has emphasized the need for dedicated transit along the corridor. The public, the legislature, and local leaders are all aligned. Make no small plans. Unfortunately, the public, including myself, continues to learn about major decisions only after the fact. Just months ago, IDOT stated that it had no preferred alternative. Now we hear that a new design process is underway. While I'm really happy to hear that new modeling and design work is being done, this is not transparency. This is just not how you steward a once-in-a-century opportunity to reshape Chicago's lakefront, a civic treasure that belongs to everyone. The public comment day on August 6th is a Thursday from 3 to 4:30. Most people just can't make that. I'd really love to see CMAP table at farmers markets, outside train stations, grocery stores, street fests, like meeting people where they're at. It's crucial to get this right. We now have historic state investment in transit operations through NETA coming into effect in less than a week. Ridership is rebounding. People are asking for choices beyond driving. Given that the Strait of Hormuz is still closed and gas prices are reaching record highs, driving may no longer even be a choice for many. This is the moment to build a lakefront that reflects our future and not our past. We should take inspiration from cities like Seattle and San Francisco that have transformed.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. We have Felix and then Alex Thrush.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Felix Tullen. I'm speaking today as a board elder representing the Rising Sanctuary. It's a global community-based NGO. I want to recognize and respect the extensive effort that has gone into the North DuSable Lakeshore Drive Phase 1 study, including years of technical analysis and significant community engagement. However, the public record shows that while the recommended direction has been identified, the study itself is not yet finalized and is extended beyond its previously stated timeline and has not been consolidated into a single complete and approved document. At the same time, publicly available materials indicate a gap between the priorities consistently expressed through community input, and particularly regarding transit and the design direction currently under consideration. Given that this is a publicly funded multi-billion-dollar investment that will shape our lakefront for generations, we believe it is essential that all visible alternatives be elevated with equal rigor, completeness, and transparency. For that reason, the Rising Sanctuary will fund, will fund a $10 million independent engineering grade study at Phase 1 equivalent level. This effort will include full alternative development, technical modeling, environmental considerations, comprehensive cost analysis for viable multimodal options for the corridor. Our intent is not to replace the existing process, but to strengthen it by ensuring that community-supported alternatives are analyzed at the same level of technical and financial detail as the current preferred direction. This effort will produce a complete set of deliverables, including conceptual designs, performance modeling, side-by-side cost comparisons, so that all stakeholders can evaluate these options on equal footing.
Thank you for your comment.
We look forward to working in coordination with the city, the county, and all stakeholders to help ensure that this project fully reflects both the needs and the voices of the public it serves. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. We have Alex Thrush, Henry Firth, and Roman Schuster.
Right. Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Thrush. I live in South Loop. I live within easy walking distance of the lake and often go to Grant Park to read, relax, and enjoy some nature. To me, Lakeshore Drive serves as an impediment to accessing parks and the lake and diminishes the experience once you get to these places due to vehicle exhaust, noise pollution, and the reduction of public space. Rebuilding an 8-lane highway through public parks impacts everyone in the city and makes all of those issues worse. Redefining Lakeshore Drive means redefining the space it exists in. The area now occupied by Lakeshore Drive could feature dedicated space for public transportation, improved cycling and pedestrian facilities, and more space for people to use and enjoy. As energy becomes more expensive and the impacts of climate change more apparent, people want to walk, roll, bike, and use public transportation when they're given quality infrastructure to do those things. An 8-lane highway tells people to just drive instead. Let us remember you as the people who helped lead the city into a safer and more sustainable future, not back into the dangerous and polluted past. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry Firth? Is Henry here? Welcome.
Thank you. So good morning. First, I want to say that I'm commenting specifically on the North DuSable Lakeshore Drive attachment of the RTP. I want to say I appreciate the clarity that the design process has not been finalized and that inclusion in the RTP is not an endorsement of any particular design. I'd like to say that while I support making Lakeshore Drive eligible for good state of repair funding, I do not support rebuilding it on the same car-centric assumptions. I think it's fair to say at this point that there's been a disconnect between what the public has said they want out of this project and what the designs that have come out of it thus far have been. To understand like where this disconnect has happened, I've done quite a bit of research into old task force meetings. I even went as far as to read the documentation appendix for the travel demand model and like started rerunning Python code myself to understand how it worked. In my research, I think I've come up with like identified a couple of areas where I feel like this disconnect may have occurred. And I'd like to provide some suggestions that I hope that CMAP can try to include in the process to ensure that the process is amended going forward. So first, I want to say that models should not be a substitute for real world observation. I think if we can close vehicle lanes for construction, we should be able to close them for excuse me, for bus lane pilots and traffic studies. I think additionally, bus reliability should outweigh minor car delays in the studies. So if a particular design increases car travel times, it should not overrule major improvements to bus travel times. Additionally, I think we need to consider a conversion first dedicated bus lane design. I would also like to say that the updated modeling used by CDOT and IDOT needs to be public and validated by experimental data.
Thank you for your comment. I'm sorry, that's 2 minutes.
Okay, we have Roman Schuster and then Ellen Steinke and Addison Baker.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Chicago residents who use this Lakeshore Drive to move through our city. I'm a Lakeview resident. I'm a bike commuter. I'm a cargo bike dad. My daughter's about to bike independently. But I still think that slowing car travel on Lakeshore Drive is a mistake. And it's for several reasons. I don't drive often, but Lakeshore Drive has been critical for my family. Between 2020 and 2023, I was blessed with 2 trips to Prentice Hospital for the birth of 2 of my kids. And I had the misfortune to travel to Loris Children's Hospital several times during that time as well. And I can tell you that it is really hard to quantify how important it is to move to the city quickly when you're urged to try to get to the medical district, or if you're driving home and you need to get some rest after sort of taking care of a sick kid in the hospital overnight. Going beyond my small world, there's 150,000 vehicles that use Lakeshore Drive every single day. When we make Lakeshore Drive less accessible for cars, that traffic is going to go into the local streets, and it's going to create a lot more travel times for commuters. Some here will say it's only 10, 15 minutes, but if you add that time over a week, you're talking about hours. That's less, that people have less time to spend with their families. We don't have to imagine what a future of that the restriction that travel on Lakeshore Drive looks like. Just look at what happened when we shut down Ridge Avenue last year, or look at all the current gridlock that is happening on, around our river during the work on Colton, Halstead, and Lake Avenue bridges. Lakeshore Drive was named one of the most beautiful streets in the world. It needs an update. Recommendations that IDOT made in 2024, are major improvement. They expand public space, they make the lakefront more accessible, and they make the road safer. So let's stop stalling this project and let's get going and sort of rebuild the Lakeshore Drive that we all deserve. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Ellen Steinke and Addison Baker.
Thank you for letting me speak today. And also, speed is the #1 killer, especially of children and cause of pollution, but we will move beyond that. I want to say that DeSable Lakeshore Drive has never been a static.
Can you state your name, ma'am?
I'm so sorry. Ellen Steinke. DeSable Lakeshore Drive has never been a static entity. Every generation of Chicagoans have reshaped it around what they've imagined the future of the city should be. Our generation now has the opportunity to do the same. Originally, wealthy businessman Potter Palmer pushed for the creation of the scenic boulevard along the lakefront to increase the value of nearby mansions. Later, the lakefront boulevard became a broader civic vision inspired by Daniel Burnham's idea of what a lakefront as a forever clear and free could be. During the During the World's Fair, Chicago presented itself as a modern city built around beauty parks, public space, and public ambition. Then, in the mid-20th century, another generation reshaped the corridor around a different vision of modernity, namely car speed or suburban community highway expansion, accelerated by a major influx of federal highway funding. Now, a century later, we're at another decision point. What does this generation want the lakefront to become? Cities around the world are rethinking their waterfront highways because they realize that high-speed roads running through major public spaces create barriers, pollution, noise, dangerous crossings, and disconnected neighborhoods. Places like San Francisco, Boston, Seattle, Seoul, and Paris are moving towards lower speed boulevards, stronger transit, and waterfronts designed around people rather than vehicle throughput. And I think that Chicago is the same crossroads now. The current proposal still largely reflects older assumptions about what progress looks like. But many Chicagoans, especially those who live near the corridor and use the lakefront every day, are asking for something different, a design that treats the lakefront as a truly public space rather than a highway corridor. This is a once-in-a-lifetime generation that will shape the city for decades. If CMAP and the agencies are revisiting alternatives analyses, then the public deserves a transparent and truly community-driven process that evaluates a lower-speed boulevard transit-oriented future for the lakefront. Every generation has reimagined the Lakeshore Drive around what it believes Chicago could become. And now this is our generation's opportunity to do the same.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. We have Addison Baker and then Nick Villarreal.
Hello, Addison Baker. I live in Lakeshore. In fact, I live on Irving Park on the entrance to Lakeshore Drive. My view is a lovely Lakeshore view and an 8-lane highway. I'm going to try to keep it quick to make sure that, because everything I've said, I'm sure everyone has, a lot of people have already said. Okay, so the Lakeshore Drive is a sacrifice that we made in the 20th century. We sacrificed access to a world-class lakeshore, something that cities around the world envy. We sacrificed air quality. We sacrificed public health for the sake of transportation. But the drive as is doesn't even function properly as a transportation resource. Hundreds of people are involved in crashes on the lakeshore every year. It's a serious danger to the community. It's not functioning well as a transportation resource. The buses are unreliable because of the traffic. The cars are also unreliable because of the traffic. So I just want to really emphasize that the exchange as presented in the potential versions of the project is the bare minimum. We absolutely need to have bus lanes on this project, and we cannot expand the highway any further, preferably a boulevard, something that is not a car-centric vision of the lakeshore going forward would be ideal, but we really, really, really need bus lanes on this corridor. 70,000 bus riders, the buses are constantly packed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The time being 11:07, we are approaching the 15-minute comment period. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to extend the public comment period by another 15 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Scott. All right, the next, do I have all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Next speakers, Nick Villarreal, Stephen Cincerello, Kaylee Moss. None of those three are. I'm just giving them a chance to.
Hi, good morning. My name is Stephen Chantarullo. I'm a Chicagoan in the 46th Ward, and I cannot drive. And despite that, I am a constant user of DuSable Lakeshore Drive. I cross over and under it to access the lakefront trail on my bike, and I use the express buses that run down the drive. I'm asking you today to truly reimagine what a people-first lakefront could look like. We simply cannot maintain the status quo of a roadway designed to move as many motor vehicles as possible. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reconnect Chicago's communities with the lakefront. We all deserve access to the beautiful outdoor spaces near Lake Michigan without the blight of pollution, noise, and threat of injury from a high-speed motorway. Even for those who must or choose to drive a car, offering robust, effective pedestrian cycling and transit infrastructure benefits them too. More people who choose a different mode of transportation means fewer cars on the roadway and therefore less traffic. Daniel Burnham famously said, "Make no little plans." I ask you to envision boldly what a future DLSD could look like. Work towards the future by prioritizing pedestrians, cyclists, and transit. put people and health over speed and motorists. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time for Nick Villarreal or Kaylee Moss. I don't think they're here. Dolores Pino and Thomas Christensen, then Ben Shepler.
Good morning. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm Dolores Pino. I'm a resident of Edgewater. I live a half a block north of Hollywood on Winthrop Avenue, if anyone's familiar. And so Hollywood is the 4-lane high-speed thoroughfare as one of the entrance and exits from the north part of DuSable Lakeshore Drive. And I experience, everyone in that neighborhood experiences massive amounts of air pollution from the 100,000 vehicles. I don't know what the number is that enters and exits Lakeshore Drive onto Sheridan Road and Hollywood, but is it 70,000, 80,000 or vehicles per day, private vehicles, mostly gasoline burning. And so the combustion products that come out of those gasoline burning vehicles include the 2.5 micron toxic ash that is the combustion products of gasoline. And there are many, of course, thousands of, I don't know the numbers again, in the 40th ward, I'm talking about, of children who reside there, who reside in apartment buildings on Sheridan Road and along Hollywood. And there's Swift's elementary school, and the children play, that's where they live, and they play outdoors. And there's a massive amount of air pollution that's harming children's bodies and health and development. The 2.5 micron can cause heart attacks itself because it penetrates into the bloodstream and into the cardiac system. So I echo what everyone is saying. Please take this opportunity to dream big and implement big and turn Lakeshore Drive into a true boulevard. And please include in your planning the health effects of the air pollution.
That's 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Thank you for your
And please help the people from the north suburbs who drive south on Sheridan Road to
Thank you.
help them onto transit. What do they need to take transit? What are the barriers? That should be part of the planning process.
Jensen, Ben Shepler, then Dr. Sudeepa Roy.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Gordon, thank you for
Sir,
having
can
me.
you state your name?
My name is Tom Christensen.
Thank
I live
you.
in Lincoln Park. And when I'm not riding the red line, you can catch me on the lakeshore. I'm here today to discuss the DuSable Lakeshore plan. The current proposal is short-sighted and frankly a bit condescending. The current mock-ups promise a beautiful dream where we somehow get more driving space and more park space. This is a lie of good intent. We all know that when this project inevitably runs behind schedule and over budget, the first thing to be cut will be park spaces meant for the enjoyment of Chicago citizens. Instead, my taxes will go towards subsidizing a slightly shorter commute for individuals who really should have just hopped on a bus or Metra or the Purple Line. So instead of wasting billions by pushing forward this bad plan, I'd like to present a solution of my own. If you guys will give me a thumbs up, let me borrow some orange cones, I will personally leave this meeting, go to Home Depot, buy every gallon of red paint they have. I'm sure I can find a few volunteers who will spend the weekend painting bus-only lanes on both sides of the drive. By Monday, the bus transit times during rush hour will be down 60%. By Friday next week, ridership will be up 15%. In 2 weeks, traffic congestion will be down 5%. And by your holiday parties, you will all be winning awards for Civil Servant of the Year. So if I'm wrong, you can also scrape off the paint for less than what it's cost you to do the research thus far. I'd like to finish by saying, remember that a developed city is not one where the poor drive cars, but where the rich ride public transit. Thank you for having me, and go Sox.
Thank you. We have Ben Shepler, Dr. Sudeepa Roy, and then Doug Jessef.
Hi, my name is Ben Shepler and I live in North Center. I, like many others, are here to discuss DeSable Lakeshore Drive. Public feedback has been clear that moving forward with the current highway expansion plan is not what Chicagoans want. And thank you for hearing us. Lakefront alders and the Illinois General Assembly and residents have been clear. What we want is a low-speed, transit-oriented boulevard that prioritizes people enjoying our greatest natural resource over a convenient route for cars passing through. For me, one of the top improvements I want to see is a better park experience. And part of that is improved and more frequent access to the lake. I've regularly ride my bike on the lakefront trail to commute and for recreation, and getting across Inner Lakeshore Drive and into the tiny tunnels at specific points like Addison or Roscoe is inconvenient and challenging. Overpasses in Lincoln Park are not much better. Riding along the trail is also a worse experience than it should be due to the noise and air quality from vehicles traveling at highway speeds just a few feet away. I think the lake should be a refuge from the noise and pollution that plagues the rest of the city, and at-grade crossings on a transit-oriented boulevard is a great place to start. Other cities like San Francisco, Paris, and Seattle have undergone the difficult task of removing waterfront expressways, and now residents of those cities cannot imagine going back to the old highway status quo. It's time for Chicago to start the same process, and I would love to see CMAP lead the charge to truly redefine the drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sudeepa Roy, Doug Jessef, and Kava Hamat.
I guess I'll go. My name is Doug Jessef. I live in Lakeview. I am an emeritus professor of philosophy at the University of South Florida. I hold a PhD from Princeton University and have research interests in the theory of modeling, theory of rational choice, and the foundation of statistics, that by way of some credential. What I want to talk about is some technical stuff about the modeling that has been put forward for this project. I can say with a great deal of confidence, having looked at modeling in other situations, I haven't actually been able to see the modeling proposed here, but the demand modeling that's being relied upon by IDOT and CDOT is, to put it mildly, obscure. It's just not clear what the inputs are. We know what the outputs are. We just don't know what the mechanism is that's generating those. What we can infer from other cases, where I've looked at cases in Florida and elsewhere, is that these sorts of models typically involve grossly outdated assumptions. IDOT wants you to think that it's 1952, but in fact it isn't. And what they're offering you essentially is raw sewage that they're selling to you as Dom Perignon, that this is the state-of-the-art gold standard modeling. I am almost certain that it isn't. Now, as it happens, some expenditures are simply not worth doing. They're worse than nothing. Building the Berlin Wall was a big mistake. Building the Outer Drive was a big mistake. Building most of the urban interstates is a big mistake. Building the Pompidou Expressway in Paris was a big mistake. The people of Paris, the people of Seattle, the people of San Francisco have gotten their act together and have removed these mistakes and gotten to some place where nobody can imagine if we're going back. Now, CMAP is not a rubber stamp for whatever hairball of a construction project IDOT happens to cough up. Right? What you need is someone with an independent eye to look at the modeling that they're offering, to look at the demand assumptions, to look at the background, the basic assumptions that go into these recommendations. And I think that if you do that, what you will see is there's literally nothing to be gained by doing the same old thing over and over. It isn't 1952. We do know that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
I have to ask you to
is a
wrap
failure.
up.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kaveh Hamat, Kyle Lucas, and CJ Blair.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaveh Hamat. I live in the near South Side, and I want to comment on the DSLSD redesign proposal. CMAP has confirmed that no preferred alternative has been finalized, and the alternatives are to be evaluated with updated modeling, and I urge you to keep the process transparent and community-driven. Public comment has for years consistently favored walking, biking, and public transit over increasing the number of car trips, And the creation of the North Illinois Regional Transit Agency is going to, offer really great opportunities to integrate the different transit systems better. And thinking about the project simply in terms of car throughput is completely the wrong way to go. I'm a dad, I live what should be a 15, 20-minute walk from the lakefront and the near south side. And because of the 8-lane highway and the way we have to run an obstacle course to get there, but, and it takes the better part of an hour, more to the point, even when you get there, you have to go way out of your way to find a spot that's quiet and pleasant. You're right next to a highway. The cars are going by at highway speeds, often a few feet from you, right, as a previous commenter noted. And that greatly undermines the enjoyability of the drive. And I find myself going way up to places like Montrose or out to Northerly Island or out of the city altogether to enjoy being by the lakefront. Bus lanes would be a great way to improve transit there, but I also would love to see a redesign of the drive take into account the possibility of trains running through the city. Train lines like BNSF being connected, having trains that go directly from O'Hare to McCormick Place, and other ways that increasing the transit network could both, improve the drive itself and give people alternatives to cars. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kyle Lucas, then CJ Blair, then Claire Folk.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Lucas, Executive Director of Better Street Chicago. I obviously have spoken to this body several times before already about this project, DuSable Lakeshore Drive. I will say, as an organizer, I've been very envious of the name Redefine the Drive for many years because it's a great name. And the process that we have been engaging in doesn't actually reflect that name. But I have to tell you, as someone who has been organizing on this issue for 7 years of my life now at this point, this is one of the days where I'm more encouraged than ever because of what we are hearing, both from CMAP and from IDOT. But that doesn't mean that we are at a place where we gotta, rest on our laurels. I really appreciate hearing that we are actually going to engage in a new process and that we're just collecting data right now. That's really encouraging. I think, it's really encouraging that CMAP is making it clear that we're not making a commitment to a design. I would like to say that CMAP does have the ability to have an opinion. That is something that CMAP has not exercised very often, unless compelled to do so by law. However, we have precedent of other MPOs in other regions that have sided with the voice of the people and the voice of legislators who have made it clear their positions. And we do have example of that here with House Resolution 438 that the 103rd General Assembly passed. I do think that there's precedent where CMAP can make it clear that the process that we're putting through, even if the RTP is not weighing in on designs, CMAP itself can say that we want a future corridor that is actually investing in transit and shifting the way that we think about moving people in this region, because this sets a precedent for the future. We know that because the rebuild of the southern half has been used as precedent for this project. And so what we do here has rippling effects throughout our communities of how we can actually rethink moving people in the entire region.
Thank
That's
you.
a massive opportunity. So let's take hold of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. The time being about 11:23, we've reached the conclusion of the 15-minute public comment period. Looking at the cards that we have here, we still have 5 more individuals who are here in person to provide comment, as well as anywhere from 8 to a dozen online who we know are here to make comments. So for that reason, I would like to entertain a motion to approve extending the comment period for an additional 15 minutes.
So moved, IDOT. Second.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we will move forward. So we've got CJ Blair, Claire Falk, and Josh Hannon.
Thank you. My name is CJ Blair.
So to start off, I've been a resident of the city for almost 10 years now, and I've lived in different parts. I used to live on North Lake Shore Drive, kind of near, I think, where Addison lived before. And I used to take the bus going downtown. I'm actually only here because I'm on parental leave. Thank you to my wife for allowing me to be here to comment. But really, I want to say thank you for the committee's work on all these different opportunities. I look forward to reviewing the regional transit plan. But I can also appreciate the stress that even IDOT has and the funding models that are going on right now, even federally, to even get any of these projects off the ground. So I want to give maybe a slightly different perspective. I agree with a lot of the comments so far, but I myself am a multimodal transit user. I used to live on Lakeshore Drive. Now I live in Bronzeville. So for me, and my wife is Vietnamese, we go to Argyle Street all the time. We drive, we go up there. But at the same time, I like to, if I can, I take an electric unicycle to downtown and then get on Metra to go to Lake County where I work. So seeing all the faces here, it's nice to see, put names to the faces who are making these decisions that affect a lot of different users in different ways. Another thing besides the Lakeshore Drive, we can think of the transit system more comprehensively as well. We don't necessarily have to focus only on the parkland space. We could add, where we can, maybe even green caps to different areas like on I-94 or 90, especially around our transit areas. Dallas has started to even do that, and that's Texas. So there's opportunities all over the place. And Lakeshore Drive obviously gets a lot of the attention right now because it's an essential asset. It's a right to, the region itself. Up and down the lakeshore, it's a beautiful asset to have. I wouldn't live in the city if it didn't have the lake, to be honest. Just being close to water matters. So yeah, I look forward to reviewing it, but I do want to say thank you to everyone for, all the consideration that's going in. And I encourage everyone to exercise that opportunity, or I guess the choice to take a choice for yourselves.
Thanks for
what
your
you want this to
comment.
look like. Thank you all for your time.
Hi, good morning. My name is Claire Fauke. I live in Chicago. I am the proud parent of 3 children that I hope as adults will continue to call Chicago home and hopefully give me a couple of grandkids. No pressure. When I was listening to the plans presented earlier, I noticed a phrase repeated, generational choice. And that when we're talking about DLSD, this is a kind of generational choice that's going to have an impact for decades to come. Frankly, it makes me sad and frustrated and outraged to think that someday I'll be scrambling across an 8-lane highway to take my grandkids to the park or to the beach, and that this experience will be handed down to my kids, grandkids, great grandkids as well. So we have the opportunity to make this generational choice. It's very personal to me, and I think a lot of people in this room. We know there's a lot of great cities in the country and in the nation that are fixing the problems that previous generations have given them. The DLSD right now is one of them. Those cities are prioritizing people, especially families, children, elders, and our most vulnerable populations over cars. I've been to a lot of these meetings, and well, with the exception of one guy I saw today, literally nobody is asking for an 8-lane highway through our most valuable natural asset. So please listen to the people, take your time, do it right, and consider folks like us who want our children to have a better experience with their own kids than we did today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have Josh Hannon, Jabron Ghani, and Catherine Zadell.
Hi, my name is Josh Hannon. I'm a resident of Lakeview, and I'm on the board of one of the Lakeview neighborhood associations. Thank you for listening to the public on this. Thank you for all the work that you put into these proposals. I'm a car owner. I ride my bike. I take public transit. And while I do appreciate every once in a while being able to quickly get on Lakeshore Drive to get somewhere in my car, I also acknowledge that any trip I take on Lakeshore Drive, any trip that most people take on Lakeshore Drive is usually less than 15, 20 minutes, whereas there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who experience Lakeshore Drive for much longer than that every day, and probably many more than who are using it on the car. And all those people who are in the parks, who live near Lakeshore Drive, who are biking through it, who are taking transit, deserve a transportation corridor that is quieter, that has less air pollution, and it's just better to live in. So as many people have said, lots of public feedback, and even the Illinois General Assembly has encouraged Lakeshore Drive to be a true boulevard, and I'd like to second that. And I also would like to encourage the board to always be including CTA and Metra in every step of this process to make sure that we really make Lakeshore Drive a true transit corridor and a true boulevard. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Jabran Ghani, Catherine Zadell, and then we'll be moving online to Zoom.
Awesome. Hello, thanks
Welcome.
for extending the comment period. My name is Jabran Ghani. I live in the Loop, and I wanted to emphasize the importance of affordability and how Lakeshore Drive and adding transit to Lakeshore Drive would be a huge step in the right direction to making Chicago more affordable. Across America, and particularly in Chicago, we're experiencing an affordability crisis, particularly for the price of gas and the price of electricity. Therefore, the price of driving a car along Lakeshore Drive will only continue to go up. If I had to buy a car to live in Chicago, I could not afford to live in Chicago, and I could not have afforded to move to Chicago. Between the price of parking, insurance, maintenance, as well as either gas or electricity, not to mention the potential price of a car loan. This is at least $10,000 a year, an expense that I could not bear. However, an unlimited pass for the CTA is $75 a month. A yearly pass for Divvy is $100 a year, which is about $1,000 a year. That is certainly affordable and should give me access to the entire city. It should give everyone sitting here access to the entire city, including taking transit along Lakeshore Drive, being able to get along quickly. And so alongside the points of safety, health, and quality of life, in a time when Chicago is losing population, Illinois is losing population, I do want this committee to see a great opportunity here to make Chicago a little more affordable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Catherine Zadell?
Thanks for taking comments today and extending the time for everyone to offer their perspective on this. I live in Lakeview and I'm about a block away from Lakeshore Drive. My husband and I don't own a car, and we've been here about 13 years and we've always used the public transit system. We do a lot of walking along the lakeshore. And I didn't know this was happening until earlier today when my friend Jabran told me about it. So I guess one of the things that's coming up for me is how many people might not know that this is being proposed and that we're talking about widening the highway when it already feels so unsafe. I don't have a lot of research or statistics, but I have experience to offer and observation. We love going to the lake. It's one of our favorite parts about living in Lakeview and being so close to it. And we live right at the tunnel from Addison. So you have to cross the street and then you go underneath the tunnel over to the park. And there's a portion where there's a barrier in quotation marks. It only comes up about knee height and the cars are racing by so fast. And it feels very unsafe, not pedestrian friendly. There's a lot of congestion within that tunnel. So many people want to be by the lake, and I think we should make that more possible and just make it more pedestrian friendly, more friendly to public transit, and not to prioritize car traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to transition to folks who requested to provide comment via Zoom. So I'm going to read the first three names. The first one is Garland Armstrong, followed by Lenny Zaleski and Hunter Heyman.
Good morning. It's Garland Armstrong, formerly of Elmwood Park and Displays, now living in Des Moines, Iowa. How's everybody doing in at CMAP?
Good morning, Garland.
All right. I have two part that I'm deeply concerned is Lynette, you're still there, and I wanted to make sure are you still working on the flashing signals at some of the stations that do not have it? And I would like to know what's the progress of it so far, and when will you start that? Because it seems like I know Metro is trying to do something about it, but I just would like to know up to date on it when is the thing's going to be ready, up and running for those stations that do not have flashing signals, like where the crosswalks are. So I just want to know about that, and also for CDOT and IDOT, I would like to make sure, like, when will you be able to go in the city of Chicago, especially for those that the sidewalks is slightly up, because there are some sidewalks that are slightly up and not completely flat down, especially for those with mobility. When they have to use the sidewalks, they'll probably be tipped over, and they said the sidewalks is slightly up and not flat down. So I would like to know from CDOT and IDOT when they can get that project on that, because it feels like they're ignoring it, where most of the in the city where the sidewalks is not flat enough to make it safe and secure. So I would like to have any suggestions or comments from any of y'all to see what's going on.
Thank you for your comments, Garland. Please send our best to Heather.
All right.
Okay, moving on, the next public commenters would be from Lenny Zaleski, Hunter Heyman, or Craig Stern. I'm not hearing Lenny join. How about Hunter?
Yep, I'm here. One second. So I'm Hunter Heyman. I am a resident of Lakeview in the 46th Ward, and I am, want to echo a lot of the comments made today about DeSable Lakeshore Drive. I'm a frequent user of Lakeshore Drive and use it every day to commute, and used to use it every day to commute to school from Lakeview to Hyde Park. And even as a frequent car driver on Lakeshore Drive, I would love to see Lakeshore Drive turned into a boulevard with more transit priority. I am particularly concerned that the time to the revised proposal will take another year of work, and will be a large gap where there's not really a lot of opportunity, it seems, for public comment. And I'm worried that, with this delay until the repair of the road might result in whatever the newly proposed alternative becoming the only option that could be implemented, because no other options would exist. Given the past plans that have been proposed, not very optimistic about what this newly proposed alternative might be. I encourage the members of this commission to use their influence to push for a multimodal interdisciplinary committee, an organization to approach that incorporates quick build and demonstration projects for coming up with new alternatives that reduce vehicle miles traveled and prioritize transit. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. The time now is 11:38, and CMAP staff has just informed us that there are still 21 people online who still wish to make a comment. So I would like to ask the committee for a motion to extend the public comment period for another 15 minutes. Thank you, Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have Craig Stern, followed by Michael Kaiser-Nyman. Craig Stern, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
morning. My name is Craig Stern. I live in Rogers Park, right where near Lakeshore Drive dumps its northbound traffic. I just want to say to redefine something is to change its meaning. And if anything in Chicago needs that, it's DuSable Lakeshore Drive. We're talking about a cacophonous 8-lane highway filled with speeding, unless it's at a dead stop because of the dozen car crashes it produces each day. The American Lung Association ranks Chicago 15th worst in the US for ozone pollution and 13th worst for year-round particulate matter pollution. A recent Northwestern study found much higher concentrations of these around Chicago highways. Leaving Lakeshore Drive like this in the by far most densely populated part of this region would be a crime against public health. CMAP's 2024 report admits the top pieces of public feedback on Redefine the Drive include prioritize public transit, number one, and number two, prioritize pedestrians. But the 2024 plan prioritizes neither. Nicer stops for buses that still get stuck in endless traffic is not prioritizing transit. And widening tunnels we must still skitter through like rats is not prioritizing pedestrians. Chicago has 7 interstates. We do not need an 8-lane highway on top of that. We should dedicate 2 lanes for public transit. This will produce faster, more reliable service, incentivize transit use, take cars off the road, and reduce congestion and air pollution. And it can be done. Seattle took down Alaskan Way Viaduct, rerouted traffic, and shrank their highway to a 4-lane street giving easy access to their waterfront. Portland did it with Harbor Drive, formerly a 6-lane waterfront highway. So did Chattanooga, Tennessee. Dusseldorf, Vancouver, so many places have managed this. Cities with not even close to our resources. I want to see that same courage and clarity of vision from CMAP. Chicagoland deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Michael Kaiser Nyman and then Courtney Cobbs.
Hi, I'm Michael Kaiser Nyman. I live in the Uptown neighborhood in Chicago, and I am a car driver. I am a public transit user. I'm a cyclist, and I live by Lakeshore Drive, and I drive on it and bike alongside it and take the bus on it very regularly. If I had my way, I would never drive on it. Driving on it is terrible so much of the time. It's crowded, there's traffic slowdowns, but there is no other way for me to get to Hyde Park in any reasonable time frame. And I go to Hyde Park regularly, and it's crazy that I'm not able to hop on an express bus on the north side of Chicago and get to the south side of Chicago. It seems to be a part of our legacy of segregation, and I'd really like to see us prioritizing transit. I think that the person who suggested just painting bus lanes as a starting point, I think, yeah, it's crazy that we're taking so long to discuss this when we can just take our existing infrastructure and make a dedicated bus lane and see what the impact of that is right away. And this is just like the lowest hanging fruit. I'd love to see some sort of a step like that. And in the bigger term, or the bigger picture, the longer term, really the lake is one of Chicago's greatest resources. I'm actually walking there right now. You might hear the honking and the traffic in the background and the noise of these polluting cars that I'm walking by to get to the lake right now. The lake is beautiful. It's wonderful. It is one of the reasons that I live in Chicago. And it is such a shame that we have this enormous highway going through it. It's crazy to me that we're considering expanding this highway to block the access of it and make it more unpleasant. And we should really be prioritizing this wonderful natural resource and public transit that'll allow all of us to access it easily and to get throughout our city easily. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Courtney Cobbs and then Kaylin Luciano.
Hello, my name is Courtney Cobbs. I'm a resident of Rogers Park. I live off of Sheridan Road, and I remember years ago when I was looking for apartments in Edgewater saying to myself, I will never ever live off Sheridan Road because there's so much traffic off of Lakeshore Drive and it's so noisy. And now I live off of noisy Sheridan Road. I believe that this is a moment in time where we can chart a new path, literally by putting transit first, by putting pedestrians first, cyclists, by not expanding Lakeshore Drive. Someone else mentioned the high cost of gasoline. I don't see this coming down. I don't see oil becoming any cheaper. And honestly, with climate collapse, we shouldn't be investing in more car intensive infrastructure. And I believe that CMAP can be one of the agencies that says we need to chart a new path. Ever since this process this public comment process for Redefine the Drive has been going on, the public has been adamant that they do not want to expand Lakeshore Drive, that they want to see more focus on cyclists. They want to see more focus on transit. I live very close to the 147 bus. I can easily take it, but I choose not to because it gets stuck in traffic. I have literally been late to work multiple times, 30, 45 minutes late because of the traffic that the bus gets stuck in. Buses getting stuck in traffic is a policy failure. It is disrespectful to taxpayers to have buses sit in traffic. And CMAP can be one of the agencies that says we need a dedicated camera enforced bus lane for all the buses that use Lakeshore Drive. And that's what I want to see as a taxpayer. I don't want to see more expanded highways that are just going to pollute the air and the water. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kaylin Luciano. If Kaylin's not here, we have E. Asbury DeButz. Okay. Next up, we have Matthew Truskowski. Sorry. All right. Lewis Warner, are you online?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
My name is Lois Warner. I live in Edgewater in the 48th Ward, and like many others, I'm urging you guys to weigh on the Redefining the Drive initiative. The current go-ahead option offers a really insignificant change for the cost that it would entail. And like many others have said, the community has shown a strong desire for a more balanced approach to include pedestrian access and cyclist access. I would like to remind everyone that this doesn't necessarily mean that cars are no longer an option. It may slow cars down a little bit, but it might not necessarily even do that due to the amount of people that would then be able to use other transit options. I myself frequently find myself driving on Lakeshore Drive when I would really rather be cycling safely and cleanly or just taking the bus. Part of why I chose to live in Edgewater, similar to Victoria, is because I found that it makes getting to the lakefront so much easier. I don't have to find the tunnels. I don't have to try to find the bridges. I don't have to deal with the noise and the pollution, and it really enhances my personal experience of the beach. So in this time of constant uncertainty and high prices, and with many Chicagoans having difficulty affording and driving a car, I'm urging you guys to consider a more balanced approach rather than cementing our future in the past, so that in the future we will have more flexible and more balanced options. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We have Paul Jacobs, Nathan Bean, and Ian Horvath.
Hello. I'm Paul Jacobs. I'm here to give a public comment in favor of reducing the urban highway that is Lakeshore Drive. I think this is a mistake done a long, long time ago in a very different mood. And I think nowadays we want cities where people live here, where people play here, where it's walkable, where it's transit friendly. And DuSable Lake Drive must be redone to promote that. I think the people who live here hate the way it works now. It only works for a very tiny subset of people who are driving through Chicago, treating it as an urban highway to get from north to south. For anybody who lives here, the current experience is quite terrible and should be redone to both have a dedicated bus lane and reduce the width of the highway to make it more friendly for those who are living and playing and working nearby. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Bean.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Nathan Bean. I'm a resident of the 34th Ward and a 13-year resident of Chicago. One of the things that made me move here, besides the affordable living, even when I was working as an assistant manager at Starbucks, was not just the housing, but also the ability to get to and from wherever I wanted to go via public transit. And as not a car owner myself, it was really nice to be able to have so many options. But unfortunately, we do not have an option for someone like me, or even more disabled people who may not be able to walk or take advantage of, owning a car, to be able to experience the lakefront in an accessible way. And we need to really think about the future of the population of Chicago. A ton of millennials who in the next 30 years will be getting to ages where they will need to take other forms of transit, as well as focus on, how do I get to the lakefront when I'm in a wheelchair? How do I get to the lakefront when, I break, like me, when I broke my foot last year, how do I get there? And we need to invest in ways to make it more accessible and not have just an 8-lane highway. We need to have rapid bus transit, a light rail, easy walkability to and from the lakefront. I may not like sand, but I still like being able to go to the trail and do activities. So I urge CMAP to look at different options so that we can make this more accessible for everyone in Chicago. Thank you very much. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you. Ian Horvath, Aaliyah Rogalski, and Nathan Roberts. Ian, are you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm just kind of echoing the sentiments that have been expressed by many already. I don't have a lot of novel things to provide in that regard, but yeah, just reiterating my desire as a user of the Lakefront Trail, someone who lives in Buena Park, pretty near Lakeshore Drive, looking for something that, emphasizes transit and easier access for people to the lakefront rather than, vehicle throughput for some that drive on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Aaliyah Rogalski.
Hi, my name is Aliyah Rogalski, and I'm a resident in Lakeview in the 44th Ward. I'm here to talk about the DuSable Lakeshore Drive project as well. CMAP should not allow this project to advance without a transparent, community-driven process that is open to a boulevard and a transit-first approach. It really feels insane that we are considering expanding this highway, and the public has been very adamant that we do not want another highway. Since moving to Chicago in 2020, I have always lived on Lakeshore Drive, first in the Gold Coast, and then in several different locations in Lakeview. I do not own a car because it is cheaper for me to take public transit. That's really why I moved to Chicago, so I didn't have to own a car. And I spend all of my time in the parks and walking paths around DuSable Lakeshore Drive. As someone who lives next to this highway, I can tell you firsthand what it's like living here. It is noisy, it is dangerous to pedestrians, and it is an eyesore. I lament the fact that the only way to get to the lake is by walking through underpasses, which often flood, and more often than not are full of garbage and giant spiders. The rat analogy was very apt. Like someone else mentioned earlier, I also wish that the lakefront felt like a refuge from the city. But instead, we spend our free time listening to the sound of car crashes and motorcycle engines and breathing in car exhaust as we exercise and play. A 2023 survey found that 73% of Chicagoans say DuSable Lakeshore Drive diminishes their quality of life. And I can say firsthand that that is true. We deserve a better experience that puts people over cars. Our lakefront is the gem of our city, and creating the highway that is DuSable Lakeshore Drive was a mistake. We now have an opportunity to fix that mistake and reimagine our public spaces and transportation to both beautify our city and improve human and planetary health, public safety, and quality of life. So I ask that CMAP pause to reconsider these alternatives like a boulevard approach. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The time is 11:53. We have had the public comment period for 1 hour. I would like to point out that we have 11 more speakers online who wish to provide comments today. And I want to thank the committee for their extended continuation so we can hear these voices. And I'd like to entertain a motion to continue. Maybe we can get this done in the next 15 minutes, another 15 minutes for the public comment period.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Nathan Roberts, then Boyce Outerslice.
Hello, everyone. I am Nathan Roberts. I'm a resident of Chicago, Illinois, living in Old Town, the Second Ward. I wanted to start by thanking CMAP, IDOT, and CDOT for, looking into alternatives around the future of Lakeshore Drive. I also want to thank earlier in this meeting, I heard that, there's a lot of interest in having community engagement around these projects. Lakeshore Drive is clearly very important to the local residents, commuters, and even the surrounding environment as a whole. Due to this, it's important that the redesign is led with community input and communication. I understand there's pressure to get funding and works underway. We're working very hard, but that pressure is what has the community opposed to any of these discussions occurring behind closed doors. The lakefront is part of my daily life. I commute that way by bike. I'm thinking of the comment of going through the tunnel like a sewer rat. It's accurate for me as well. Is how I connect with the community on the beaches and on the walkways. And it's how I and every other resident get our drinking water. Based on previous comments, I could tell that we want the project to be safer, accessible to everyone, but also sustainable and environmentally and financially. We want it to be sustainable environmentally and financially, excuse me. It is important to us, so let us shape its future that benefits everyone. Please encourage community input, reach out to the community, and let's make it better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Boyce Outerslice and Bronte Hofer.
Hi, my name is Boyce. Chicago resident for about 8 years. Yeah, and I'm just echoing everyone else's sentiments about the need to have Lakeshore Drive be accessible to everyone, not just people who choose to pay for cars. I'm not also bringing anything new, so I'll give you guys some time back. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Bronte Hofer, Matthew Trozowski.
Hi, my name is Bronte Hofer. I am a resident of Edgewater, 48th Ward. I also wanted to comment on the North LSD study. I don't own a car. I rely on CTA, walking, and riding my bike for transportation. I also work in sustainability, and I have concerns that doubling down and expanding car-dependent infrastructure undermines Chicago's climate action plan goal of reducing the amount of vehicle miles traveled, increase the use of alternative transportation, and ultimately to address the 21% of Chicago's emissions that are attributed to transportation. I see a lot of climate action plans from organizations and companies and municipalities that don't have concrete and actionable plans to realize their lofty emissions reduction goals. And achieving these goals usually requires one to action on the plans that they put forth. And anything so short of this is insufficient or disingenuous. So when we're planning things like this, I think it's imperative for us to address climate concerns with ambitious plans. And we also owe it to the future of the city when considering our plans for what's considered a generational choice. So therefore, I think it's important to treat quote unquote alternative transportation options as equally or really more important than single occupancy vehicle infrastructure. And all of our long-term infrastructure investments should reflect this value. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Truskowski, Brian Hughes, and Benjamin Nagy.
Hi, is the mic working?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, everyone. During this meeting, we've heard about important goals around budgets and
I'm
traffic
sorry, what's your
deaths
name,
and
sir?
Matthew Truskowski. I'm in
Thank
Ward
you.
43.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, we've heard goals around budgets, traffic deaths, pollution, and we've also seen that roadway maintenance is a particularly big cost on our budget, especially where elevated infrastructure is involved. These are relevant to all of these projects, and that includes Redefine the Drive. As we move forward, I think one of the most important things for us is ensuring that we are not chained to transportation models and funding systems that lead to roadway designs that are in opposition to those stated goals. Traffic studies show that expansive roadways, for all the funding that gets thrown at them, do not alleviate traffic congestion, but do devalue and pollute the neighboring areas. while ballooning maintenance costs, all of which is in opposition to the Transportation Committee's stated goals. I appreciate that the public comments are being heard, and I want to ensure that something of value comes from that. Separately, I would support congestion pricing or other similar tolling schemes to help with the budget issues that keep getting brought up, as well as the congestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Hughes, Benjamin Nagy, and Adam Vogel. Brian, are you there? Okay, we'll move on to Benjamin Nagy.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ben Nagy, and I live in Albany Park. Today, I'm excited. I'm excited that you, the committee, appear to be listening to us, that you're hearing us and seeing us, that you recognize that the plans for the drive you previously advanced are not being received as appropriate for the mobility or health needs of the community. I want to encourage you to ensure the future of this drive is shaped through a transparent, community-driven process and to chart a bold new path towards a lakefront and transportation corridor that not only we are proud of, but that you are proud of. A decision you can look back on and say, we took a bold step forward, we acted transparently, we kept the community in the loop, and we made the lakefront into something beautiful, something that works, something the community enjoys, and something we are proud of. That can be your legacy 50 years from now. You are already stepping in that direction, and I hope you will take another step. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Vogel, Paul Soud.
My name is Adam Vogel. I am a resident of the 47th Ward, also a frequent user of the lake, like many of the people here. I am a data manager by trade. I'm quite familiar with analytical modeling, and I can tell you it is not a magic bullet, and it is only as good as the assumptions and data that go into it. I think we need to, you're all firsthand very familiar with how difficult it is to change infrastructure once it's in place. So we need to be very sure that our model, even if it says it can get more cars downtown faster, is properly considering the costs of extra traffic fatalities and the other externalities like adding more cars downtown, and how that requires transforming some of our most valuable real estate into additional parking. In addition to all of the other great points that people have raised about lakefront access. Yeah, so I appreciate all the hard work you're doing on this, and I also appreciate your willingness to respond to public feedback.
Thank you for your comment. Paul Soud, E.K. Scheffler.
Hi all, this is Paul Soud. I live in Logan Square, and it has been mentioned, I think a couple times about sort of the affordability on impact, or the impact on affordability and people's ability to live in the city, whether the financial burden of owning a car. My partner and I actually moved to Chicago from Nashville, Tennessee, because we wanted to live in a city with better transit, bike, and pedestrian access, even though we are still fortunate enough to own a car. We're lucky in Chicago that our lakefront has long been established as a space for all people, and part of living up to that promise is ensuring that the future of disabled Lakeshore Drive is decided according to the community input that we're hearing today, not just rush through the path of least resistance and stagnation by adding further car lanes, leading to the vicious cycle of induced demand and further traffic that we know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, always follows highway widening. Other beautiful cities around the world like San Francisco, Seattle, and Madrid are removing their waterfront highways and undoing the mistakes of the past. When 73% of community survey respondents say that Lakeshore Drive diminishes the quality of the riverfront parks, and 70% say that they'd like to drive less than they currently do, we should be seriously considering an approach with strong transit, safer crossings, and an even more beautiful lakefront for Chicagoans, not just those passing through in their cars on the way to somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. We have E.K. Scheffler. And then Diana, I don't have a last name. E.K. Scheffler.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for taking extra time to hear all of our comments today. My name is Erin Scheffler. I am a current resident of North Center. I'm commenting on the Redefine the Drive. I was born and raised in Chicago, and my family and I remember when Lakeshore Drive felt a bit more like a drive. The no commercial vehicles rule and the 40-mile-per-hour speed limit is no longer being enforced. And these rules keep the number of speeding drivers and illegal commercial vehicles off of the drive, which reduces crashes and traffic slowdowns. I have seen business vans, tow trucks, even a few 18-wheelers, none of which belong on the drive, and add to daily delays for regular Chicagoans. So instead of reducing the number of illegal vehicles and slowing down traffic to safer speeds, which will benefit community members who actually need to use the drive, as we've heard, the proposal I have seen offers more space and opportunity for higher speeds of all sorts of traffic. I'm curious if the studies that informed the reimagined proposals have taken into account the true amount of traffic, not a higher skewed number that would suggest we need more space for private vehicles. So I implore you to connect more with community members, hear our desires for a reimagined drive, and take into account our lived experience, or continue to do that. We want to take a more active part of this process, and I really appreciate the work that you all are doing so far on this. And I hope the future of DuSable Lakeshore Drive includes a lower speed boulevard with more robust public transit. Thank you for letting me share, and happy Friday.
Thank you. Diana?
Yes. Hello, my name is Diana Smith. I am a 40th Ward Edgewater resident, and the expansion of DuSable Lakeshore Drive directly affects me, my family, and my community. I have attended multiple listening events to provide feedback on this project, and I do not feel that my or my community's feedback and experience have been taken seriously by the designers, engineers, or officials leading this project. I want to say that I appreciate the tone and language that this meeting has taken, and that I am thankful for the extra time that you have taken today to listen to comments. But residents need to see actual trust-building actions, not just acknowledging words. I am asking that this project be reconsidered because of the negative effects and danger it poses. The current plans for DuSable Lakeshore Drive prioritize convenience for aggressive drivers at the expense and safety and well-being of the surrounding communities. It misrepresents green space to obfuscate this project's cultural and community impact. It does not adequately address the need for fast, reliable public transportation. It seeks to increase car traffic while creating the conditions for collision, which then creates massive traffic and aggressive driving in our neighborhoods. And lastly, the current design does not adequately address the racially motivated physical divisions between the north and south sides of Chicago. I understand that this has been a long design process and that time is of the essence for a replacement. But as pointed out earlier, the world has changed since this project began, and it does not address the present real world conditions or provide a sustainable plan for future challenges in an increasingly chaotic world. I urge a robust early community involvement in the redesign process to fully realize this project's potential. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The time is 12:07, and we have 7 additional people online who have requested to provide comments. I'm ever the optimist, and I think that if this committee approves the last 15 minutes, we will get to the finish line of concluding the meeting and hearing all of those who have waited their turn to provide their comments today. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve extending the meeting for perhaps the last 15 minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? I'm gonna have to go get coffee. Motion carries. So we're gonna go to the last 7 speakers. We have Lucas Van Dyke and Emilio Vasquez. Lucas, are you there?
Yes. Thank you for hearing all us and giving the opportunity to provide feedback. So my name is Lucas Van Dyke. I'm really happily living in North Center, 47th Ward. And I really enjoy all the great public assets of like the Chicago lakefront, where I often bike, run, and hang out with friends. And so I actually grew up in the Netherlands, and I know how nice it is to have like an urban environment that prioritizes bike infrastructure, transit infrastructure, in addition to good car infrastructure. And I've also witnessed how one city in the Netherlands, Utrecht, replaced one big urban highway into a new canal with beautiful parks that is now enjoyed by many. So when I learned about the current proposed design for DLZ, I was actually quite disappointed that this car-centric design is still being considered. And I would really urge CMAP to uh, take a look to the future and try to invest in a more transit-oriented and a more pedestrian-friendly and more bike-friendly design. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Emilio Vasquez and then Teresa Hall. Emilio, are you there?
Oh yeah, having issues with my headphones.
Welcome.
This is Emilio Vasquez. I live in Gold Coast. Thank you so much for taking the feedback. I wanted to say that I echo the feeling of other people of how the current design of the South Lakeshore Dive has produced pollution. We also heard how it fails to being a green refuge of the city, and also how it could be an expensive mistake that will yield negative health outcomes. Uh, I want to offer a different perspective that addresses also why it is a mistake. Since COVID, the downtown of Chicago is still 60% of its pre-COVID capacity. Um, this is caused mainly by technological transformation on the white collar workspace. But this puts the centralized transportation schemes of our city that at some point were uh, their objective were caused by segregation. Um, they've become outdated in this new economic shift, and as we will continue to see more technological transformation, we might not want to have a downtown that carries all the resources of the city. So we might want to have a more decentralized that brings back economic dynamism to our neighborhoods. So in that spirit, I think a more connected Gustavo Lakeshore Drive that carries the idea of a green refuge, it's desirable. So yeah, hopefully we can have a green and inclusive design. Happy Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Hall and then Simone Suri.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Teresa Hull. I'm a proud citizen of Chicago, currently living in Roscoe Village. One thing that I'm incredibly proud of about our city is our public lakefront. The city took our most valuable real estate and designated it for the people, which is a powerful representation of community, equality, and togetherness, which our city embodies in many ways, but of course can still improve upon in many ways as well. Many Chicagoans enjoy the lakefront on a regular basis, but Lakeshore Drive is already a hindrance to what is meant to be this amazing public space for all. The highway makes it less safe for pedestrians to access the lakefront, especially those who may have mobility restrictions. The tunnels are uninviting and make walking and biking more difficult. Car-centric design always ends up limiting access to spaces by making it less safe, less accessible, and less inviting. So expanding Lakeshore Drive for more car traffic, it's also the worst option when it comes to protecting the beautiful nature that we're so lucky to have within our city, especially at the lakefront. So as we think about redefining the drive, please prioritize making the lakefront more pedestrian, bike, and transit friendly. This provides the greatest amount of people the best access to the lakefront, which captures the spirit of Chicago and the public spaces that we're so proud of. Please design for people, not cars. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Simone Suri and then Carlos is next.
Good afternoon. My name is Simone Suri. I am a nearly 20-year resident of Chicago. I moved here from Minneapolis, and like a few others that have spoken today, part of the reason for that move was the ability to use alternative transit options and not be so car reliant. So, as an attorney and a parent living in the Southport corridor, I have proximity to the lake. I spend just about 6 days a week at the lake in some way, shape, or form, whether that's cycling or walking or running. I do have a car, but I would love to transition out of that, as would many of my neighbors. And part of what would make that easier is if we did have a redesigned Lakeshore Drive that focused on other forms of transit so that we can create a space that brings us together, gets us downtown in an efficient way, and also one that is, just to be honest, more beautiful approach. I've seen a variety of different renditions of what Lakeshore Drive could look like, and it's amazing. There is a number of possibilities that will bring and really enhance the lifestyle of those that are living in the city of Chicago. I really look at this as an opportunity that is once in a lifetime to make a change and to have a legacy that is enduring. Lakeshore Drive was developed at a time when I think our priorities were a little bit different. It served a purpose, but this is the moment for us to really look deep and realize where we need to go as a large metropolitan area in a world where we're seeing our peers nationwide transition to more transit centric, human centric, bike centric methods of transportation. I would also argue it's a time for us to be able to integrate the lakeshore into our communities. You could live a block from the lakeshore and not feel that the lakeshore is your backyard. And that's a missed opportunity for the city of
Thank you for your
Chicago.
comment. I'm
I
sorry,
also,
that's 2 minutes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Carlos in Ensaya next.
Hi, my name is Carlos. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm glad people are bringing up the South Side. I grew up on the Southeast side. So far, I've only heard one comment for the proposal as far as like making it a little more friendlier for cars. Um, I heard some comments say that some people choose to buy cars. Some of us have no choice, especially coming from the Southeast side. If you have an elderly parent or a non-mobile relative that needs to go to the North side where the hospitals are better, that Lakeshore Drive is an awesome way to get there. Um, Making it better for cars to get there, I think, is a great proposal. Um, I bought an electric car for that very reason of pollution, and the state is charging me an extra $100 for my plate sticker. But you know what? I'll do it if it helps the environment. I'm willing to go meet halfway, but I think some of these comments are kind of villainizing us. Some of us have no choice but to drive. Um, because of the situations that we are in. Some of the better jobs are on the north side, and we have to drive up to the north side. I had to move up to the north side, but I have many relatives that lived on the south side and have to drive up there sometimes. Uh, and, bringing up congestion pricing, we're already getting priced out of the city. I think that's not a good thing. We're all citizens here, so taxing one person more than the other, I think, is a bad way to go. And my last thing is everyone keeps on bringing up Paris, LA, Seattle. This is Chicago. We can do things our way. We don't have to look at other cities and see how they do it. I think we have a lot of intelligent people here, and we have to keep in mind that we have cold winters, hot summers, and not everyone can bike everywhere. We don't have that luxury. And that's just my comment. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Carlos. We have 2 comments remaining, Ensaya and then Evan Valine.
Hi, committee. Thank you for the extended time. My name is Insia Bambot. I am a resident of Ward 2, and I live about 10 minutes from Lakeshore Drive. So all of the points that I wanted to comment on for that Lakeshore Drive project, the horror movie setting, the underpasses, environmental concerns around noise, water, and air pollution, the desire for a pedestrian and transit priorities in a low-speed boulevard, those things have all been raised by others at this point. I'm not going to belabor those points any longer. But the one thing that I would like to talk about is that there have been a limited number of opportunities for public input on the design process. And as I listen to other commenters here, it's clear that what input has been given has not been incorporated into the designs thus far. So I really appreciate the tone of the committee today towards our feedback. And I encourage this group to continue seeking that feedback, not just through meetings like this one, but also tabling at farmers market, going outside a train station, going to grocery stores, art festivals, all of those public spaces where people come and exist and enjoy the city. So to this committee, you have this incredible once in a generation opportunity to modernize and protect this treasured city resource. And I trust that you will fulfill that responsibility with the gravity that it deserves. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Evan?
Good morning. My name is Evan.
I'm a resident of the 46th Ward in Lakeview. I want to thank the committee for being open to public comment today. And I would like to urge you guys to continue taking feedback and incorporating some of the suggestions that you've heard today regarding improved pedestrian, bike, transit infrastructure on Lakeshore Drive. I think that Lakeshore Drive takes up an incredible amount of space on our city's lakefront. Um, and, cars driving there always end up getting stuck in traffic at some point. And so I think that maybe more of a smaller design for cars could be a solution that benefits a lot more people, including car drivers. And I urge the committee to continue taking public comment. So thank you guys.
Thank you for your comments. As of 9:30 yesterday, which was 24 hours prior to the start of today's meeting, we'd received 370 emails of public comment in regards to the proposed redefine the Lakeshore Drive project in the regional transportation plan. All comments received for this meeting will be kept on record and will be available upon request. Written public comments received 24 hours prior to the start of the meeting will be captured in the meeting minutes. And we have just about 2 minutes remaining, and we will, my co-chair, Scott Hennings, will read the comments in the order they were received.
With pleasure, Chair. So dear Aaron Alaman and Alderperson, I urge you not to advance the Redefine the Drive project in CMAP's upcoming regional transportation plan. This deeply flawed project has faced overwhelming opposition from community members as well as elected officials and needs to be sent back to the drawing board. The premise of the project from the beginning has fundamentally rejected public input, which has shown an overwhelming majority of residents want investments in transit and a reduction in the impact of the drive on the lakefront. This desire was represented in H.R. 438, which passed unanimously in the Illinois General Assembly, calling for the drive to be made a true boulevard and for investments in transit. The majority of Chicago's alderpeople who represent the North Lakefront have made calls for the same. Despite this, the Illinois and Chicago Departments of Transportation have flouted these calls for better and presented plans with no improvements to transit and locking in a superhighway for the next 100 years of Chicagoans. It would be profoundly irresponsible for the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning to do the same. Given the historic investment in transit the Illinois General Assembly just made, paired with the dramatic changes to our regional planning for transit, it's time that CMAP help hit reset on this project.
Pardon me.
Yes, who's speaking?
I'm sorry. My name is Andrew Harris. I submitted comment, but I forgot to hit send on the draft that I sent you. I hit send while we were on the call. I was wondering if I could just be quick and put out those points.
Yes, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Again, my name is Andrew Harris. Just wanted to say huge thanks to Victoria and the committee for making this time for comment and discussion. Uncertainty is synonymous with opportunity. It gives us space and curiosity for discussion to foster communication and ultimately achieve communion. It's apparent that Chicagoans see the uncertainty of LSD as an opportunity, and having it dedicated to buses and HOV while improving the quality of nature appears to be the energy that the moment demands. We live in an urban environment with heavy population density. It's nonsensical to adapt this limited space for the needs of personal automobile users, many of whom don't even live in the city. However, speaking to the comment of the South Side, this could be addressed by drastically improving the transit structure. The climate's changing. The lakefront's not only a point of leisure, but a buffer for flooding and erosion. So rather than increase these asphalt islands, perhaps we could focus on biodiversity to mitigate the flooding risk and erosion. And just wanted to say that the Montrose Harbor is a great example of something that we could be pursuing as opposed to asphalt islands. Many people here commented on how they use that as a point of leisure. And leisure is obviously a very important element to the health of the city. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. The time is 12:24, and the public comment period has concluded. At this time, I would like to give a special thanks on behalf of the committee to CMAP staff. Vicky, Blanca, and Richard, thank you for keeping things smoothly, running smoothly in the background with all the lengthy amount of comments that not only are received in writing, but in person and online. So thank you to you. Now that the public comment period has concluded, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 9. Our next meeting will be July 31st, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. And lastly, we'll move on to adjournment. So if there's no other business before the committee, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Amy. Do I have a second? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, me too.